On today's episode, we have my good friend Kyle Hoschar, and he comes on. We talk about MMA, we talk about movies, TV shows, the typical foolery. I've known Kyle for a long time. Actually, when I first decided to try and do a podcast, he was the first person I talked to about being kind of a co-host. Different schedules, different things, so it never worked out, but I'm glad to have him on the episode today. Also, I think we're going to do a monthly MMA show, so look for that. And without further ado, here's Kyle. All right, Kyle in the studio. Glad to have you, brother.
Thank you. So, Donald Trump. Let's get into that.
That's the hot topic.
Yeah.
Actually, you were asking me beforehand about where I got some of the work, like signs and stuff for the podcast in the studio. And I told you my sister-in-law got me that one. My friend, he was my friend from St. Louis. His wife did the graphic. He actually made the wood one. He also does he gets bored and drunk and does like woodwork, and he's done like Thor's hammer and like the fish hook from what's that Disney movie Momoa or something like that. Moana, yeah.
Something like that.
He does a lot of cool stuff like that.
Yeah, my buddy's wife, we always go to like these festivals and stuff, and they're older, and like we took them out to this festival. You know what I mean? They kind of had a life-changing experience, you know what I mean? Had a great time, and she picked up leatherwork because there's just art aplenty when you go to these places. She picked up leatherwork, and she became amazing at it in like a year.
No shit.
I mean, she's selling bags for like $800 and stuff right now.
Really?
Yeah, like they're highly detailed. I mean, a lot of Grateful Dead stuff because that's just the market, but. And even bass nectar stuff like that, but they're amazing. She did it within like a year.
That's crazy. And
that's what I love. I tell people, I'm like, man, you need to go to these places because they're just inspiring to see all these people do just whatever their talent is. It's on display, and you're seeing it everywhere you look. It's like, wow, that person does this person does that,
right?
And you go home, what can I do?
And they're making a living doing it.
Yeah. The community kind of supports itself even.
Well, I think I'm so big on community. I'm glad you said that word because I'm hype on it all the time. I think we have such a less sense of community in today's society that it's unbelievable.
Well, and that's the thing with the festival scene is like people go there and they get a sense of community and they it's culture shock and they're like, oh my God, life could be this way. Like we could actually thrive together.
Yeah. Wow. One of the things that really brought that on was reading this book Tribe, which I got from the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, well,
it's actually not even
the almighty Rogan podcast.
Yeah, me and you, we're both big fans. We actually bought it on that fairly early. Actually, for most people on the podcast that listen to the podcast won't know, but when I first started talking about doing a podcast, Kyle was the first guy I talked to about possibly doing a podcast together. Yeah. And we just, we have a hard time always getting on the same page time-wise.
Life's
so
busy. I had a kid.
Yeah.
I still plan on doing it, though.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to the studio anytime if you decide to do your own.
Yeah, you put so much work in, man. It's like, oh, yeah, I'll just walk in here and
yeah. Well, you're welcome to it anytime. The only thing I ask is if you become rich from it, you help me out.
We'll kick it back. Build you a new studio.
Yeah. And I would always do the behind the scenes stuff for you too.
Speaking of the Rogan podcast, something super interesting I found. Did you see that? I posted about it that Empire of the Southern Moon. He talked about it's a book they were talking about. He had the author on. Can't remember what the author's name was. I think I missed that one. Man, it's like about the Comanche tribes and stuff, and like right at the dawn of us going westward.
I've heard about him talking about that. Yeah,
it's super interesting, and it's like you learn about stuff like that, and you're like, man, history class could have been so cool. Like
Oh.
they gave us this like condensed, terrible, shortened version of it.
History class could have been so much cooler. It was actually the only class I really paid attention to in school.
And that was just a trickle of it. You know what I mean? Imagine some of the stuff we could have heard. And
like they let you know about the Trail of Tears and stuff like that, but they're not telling you about what happened really before we got here in that before what we call them Anglo-Saxons, Europeans got here.
Yeah, well, and they paint such black and white pictures of the whole thing, and it's like, the people that were living on the frontier with nothing, that there's some bravery in that too. Like these people, these are just all people trying to survive and live in a free new world. Like, I mean, you get out there and you're in Indian territory and you're impeding on it, but to you, you're just
trying to make a life.
Yeah, in a primitive world,
Yeah, and how much do you think those people depended on community? And now today, you may not even talk to your neighbor.
Well, that's the thing is like the bravery it would take to leave community and go out into like nothing where there's no like, there's no institution, there's no school, you can't run to the hospital.
Right.
You're out there all by yourself. And then the Comanches come.
Yeah, and I think about doing that now, just wandering out into the wilderness. But I like my things too much. Plus, actually, the biggest thing that prevents me from completely I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna switch to a 1-bedroom apartment and do this is one, my dogs, and two, the podcast. Now I love doing the podcast, whether it takes off or not. I love doing it, and I need a space to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to record your thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably cathartic just as a release anyway, just to talk.
Yeah, for me, that's definitely what it is. It's cathartic to get my thoughts out especially instead of doing it just on Facebook.
Yeah, in a more productive way that isn't just, hey, how many likes can I get?
Right.
You have something you can look back on.
And I'm very active on your, obviously my personal Facebook isn't very active, but I'm very active on your Facebook because you're always bringing up hot topics. But the problem with that is whether it's me or like I was telling to you earlier, a lot of people who just see me and you interacting on Facebook probably think we hate each other.
Yeah.
Just recently, because lately we've had different opinions on stuff. A lot of things we agree on, but
we seem to be not agreeing a lot on some things lately. But it's all good, man. I mean, that I would rather talk. I value your opinion, so and I would rather talk. It's more interesting to talk to you about things that we might not agree on because. The stuff we agree on, we know we agree. We don't get very far on that. It's just yep,
and we're done.
Yeah, but we can go for hours on stuff we might disagree on, and because it's not we know it's not coming from a place of somebody who's an absurd person,
right? Not an absurd person, and no real animosity.
No, yeah.
Even though, and that's one of the things I like about the podcast and talking face to face rather than Facebook is we said this earlier. You can't sometimes get your intent across.
Yeah,
You think people are being more angry than they actually are, or people think you're being more angry than you actually are.
I think that's just an innate thing. It's where anxiety comes from. You think the other person's angry at you or something,
right?
And it's you don't want them to really be angry at you.
Yeah, and how especially recently the ones we really disagree on are football, and how mad can you really get at each other for disagreeing on football things?
Yeah, and the thing is it's so unpredictable. We're all just yelling into the dark. We don't. We don't know the guy personally. We don't know what he's made of. We don't.
Right, we don't know how any of their careers are actually going to play out.
We're looking at trends and we're looking at things we've seen before and trying to guess and be the guy that guessed right. I'm the best guesser of the football.
Yeah, but actually, so let's go ahead and jump right into football. So you're a diehard Browns fan.
Yeah.
Through the bad times, through the good times.
It's been hard.
Yeah. Well, I will say. It was hard for me until recent years. Because I'm a Rams fan, and until the past 2 years, it was rough since the greatest show on turf. But still this year I don't think it was a complete loss because you still had a better year than you've had in multiple years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how many teams are perennial 6 and 7, 6-win teams? The Browns just went from being 0-win team to a 6-7-win team for a couple years.
Yeah.
That's the steps it takes. It's very rare that a team just turns around like that. Now, everybody wants to be like, well, you're not gonna they're not going to have a chance to turn around and keep firing the coach. But the coach became an apparent problem that, almost everybody could see, like, man, this guy's game plans are just not, they're just not up to snuff, especially with the talent that he had or the pieces that he had around him. Like,
they probably have more skill players than any other team, like more high-level skill players.
And it became very apparent that they weren't being utilized right. Plus, there's things about the OBJ that, the rumor is that Kitchen didn't make it in practice as much,
I don't think OBJ. So one thing we do agree the coach was a problem, because I have ran into a Browns fan that was mad that they fired Kitchens, and I thought he was batshit crazy.
Well, and I was a huge supporter of the hire. It wasn't easy for me to let him and be like, it's time to move on, because I wanted him to succeed, and I liked the guy. I thought his personality fit Cleveland really well. And I don't know what the guy knows about football.
Right.
I assume the guys above him, know, hey, this guy, he's pretty knowledgeable about football. We're going to hire him. I was looking for a diamond in the rough kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the old guard of coaches. The Belichick tree's been out there, and none of them can beat Belichick. Like
the Belichick tree and the two trees that have been out there forever, the Belichick tree and the who was the New England's coach before him? Parcells.
Parcells, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Parcells' tree, I would argue, is a little more successful than Belichick's tree.
I would agree.
But because I think Belichick's such a genius that I don't think really any of the guys under him are the guys that are making that thing move. Anybody he hires under him, it don't matter. He's going to take y'all to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And now you guys are getting jobs everywhere.
Yeah. He's the genius, without a doubt. It shows with Pat Patricia right now.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, look at all we've had. The Browns have been through a bunch of the Belichick coaching tree, and it's never worked out. And it's not like they've gone on to have success elsewhere. I'm tired of that old guard, so I was happy to see them take a reach on a guy, but it just didn't, it didn't
pan
work. Like throughout the season, it became apparent, like, man, I just don't think this guy knows how to run an NFL game plan. Like,
well, and a big problem I think was the discipline. I don't think he. He had
enough
control
of the team. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of those people from the Belichick tree suffer is from the discipline aspect, because Belichick is all. Belichick.
Yeah.
He's all discipline.
Yeah,
all
they
discipline.
don't. They might have the X's and O's, but they're like look at AB. The whole AB situation, all that stuff kept popping off this year. But for that week or two that he was in New England, you didn't hear peep.
Nothing.
You didn't hear nothing from AB.
Because you're not going to make noise there. You make noise there, you're gone.
You know it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. What was his name? Collins. He ended up going to the Browns. Like, literally, it was almost like punishment. Like, he started vocaling opinions that he wanted to get super paid and was making all this noise, and Belichick was like, cool, we're going to trade you to the Browns.
Goodbye. Well, and like little things with Kitchens, like, the offense had a huge problem with false starts, and I'm like, I don't care how much.
That's where I say the discipline.
I don't care how much you're paying a guy. After the second or third false start, you look at him and you go, look, man, I'll go get somebody off the practice squad. We cannot have you jumping on that. I don't care if a guy blows his assignment on every play. At least he's not setting his back 5 automatic yards. Like,
yeah,
we will go sit on the bench. Like, why can't you do that as the head coach? Why do you not have that control to look at your team and be like, if you cannot execute, you will not play.
Right, and you should have that. I don't care. I don't care who the person is.
Right. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care that he was the first round pick or this, and you want him to turn out well. Well,
yeah,
he's not getting it done this season. He keeps screwing up,
and he can learn from the bench.
Yeah, maybe he'll think about it. Maybe he'll be like, man, I really got to get it together because I'm in danger of losing my position here.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with the coaching thing. The two areas I do disagree with you. I don't think OBJ was as big of a problem as you think he was. But the big thing we disagree on at this point, and I was a super Baker Mayfield guy. I was like, this guy's the future. The Browns are about to be killer. I think he showed way too much indecisiveness. Not to say he can't fix that. He can fix that. But I think the whole team, and they had a bad coach in front of them. I think the whole team thought, look at all these skill players we have. We don't really even have to put that much effort in. We're too good. And I think Baker fell into that. And I think he had a lot of indecisiveness. I actually think he looked at OBJ too much.
Yeah.
I think he looked at him too much. Like, I'm going to stare at OBJ,
Well, that's
then
the
go.
area where I look. I don't think of him as a problem so much as like, oh, look, this diva guy. I think he was more of a problem for a young guy who was already, dealing with the coach problem, dealing with the O-line problem. And, I mean, there was a lot of times OBJ would drop the ball wide open.
Yeah.
And, like, I just think for a young guy, OBJ has some mystique to him, and you feel a responsibility to get him the ball. Like,
right.
You think, you think he's a guy that's going to get you out of something. So you look to him and you force him one. Whereas a young guy doesn't need to be thinking about those things. He needs to be, focusing on where's the best place to get this ball.
Open space.
Yeah.
Open space. I think that's where every quarterback needs to look, is open space. There's an opening in the defense here. Is there a receiver going in that way according to my route tree?
I definitely don't. I don't disagree that Baker took a step back this year. I just think there were things forcing him back. I think he still is that guy from last year. I just think that, I just think he has so many things working against him. Like the O-line was one way last year. He had pretty solid protection on the inside. Now he doesn't this year. You come in your first year, that's what you're used to. You're used to that level of protection, and then that goes away in your next year. There's an adjustment there.
Yeah. And one thing I'll give him is his first year, there were zero expectations.
Right.
Absolutely zero. When he took over as quarterback, there were zero expectations on him. It was like, hey, man, fuck it. We're going to put you in there and see what you do. This year, there was so much hype behind the Browns that I think some of that pressure may have got to him as well.
Yeah, and for one, he's a guy who wants to win anyway.
He definitely wants to win.
And
he's got the heart of a champion, without a doubt.
And you don't know how much he has let that pressure get to him because he thinks he's a guy who fully is capable of doing it. And the people expect him to do it. And there's some games where I think he is trying a little too much. Like he's trying to put the game on his shoulders, because I think of the what's the word? The inconsistencies of the team, and he's trying to make up for something. I just I don't think we can write the guy off. I still believe in him. There's been how many quarterbacks? 30-some quarterbacks that I've watched with the Browns that by the middle of 1 year you can tell. I'm just like, this guy does not have it, and there's nothing that Baker does that makes me think he looks lost out there. He still looks good in the pocket when it breaks down. He still manages to get out. He still, maybe he rockets one in a place he shouldn't.
Right.
But I think all those things come, when the team starts to get itself together. I don't think he feels he'll have to do as much. And I think that offense needs to be geared towards that running game. You have those two running backs. Why not let Baker, just take the pressure off of Baker? You have those two running backs. So
yeah. Without a doubt, I think that was one of the biggest coaching flaws, is they have a superior running game. Nick Chubb is a beast.
Oh, yeah.
Kareem Hunt, before they suspended him for the rest of the year, was the best running back in football.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they relied on it as much. And I feel like Kitchens thought, well, I got these great receivers, so I need to focus on the passing game. I got these great receivers, and I got the quarterback with the best personality, and the quarterback that essentially the Browns let Baker pick his coach.
Yeah, they wanted him to be the franchise guy.
And they let him pick his coach, and he picked Kitchens, and it was a wrong choice. I blame the franchise for the Kitchens thing, because you never should let your second-year quarterback pick your coach.
No matter how good he is, like that. But the Browns have been so desperate for that guy that they're like, "Oh my God, here he is! Give him the keys!
Yeah.
Give him the keys!
Yeah.
What else does he want?"
But the problem I have with Baker, and I don't think it's something that can't be corrected. I do think it can be corrected. Is his indecisiveness that I saw this season. And the reason it fears me for the future is you could see, because he's always had a lot of, for lack of a better term, swag.
Yeah.
And you could see the swag dissipate.
Yeah.
It was just drowning. He was drowning and drowning and drowning.
But I believe Baker's a guy that, I think he'll put this year behind him. I don't think he'll let it ruin him,
I hope so.
Yeah, obviously, I hope so.
I do hope so. I'm still going to be a Rams fan, die hard. I claim the Steelers as my number 2 because I've been here for so long, but I'm a massive fan of so many of those Browns players that I really do want to see them do good, and I think it's a great fucking story. I do think the heart and soul of that team is actually Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, well, yeah, a receiver for sure, and just the whole attitude. That's when there was a moment where Landry was yelling at Kitchens, and I was like, man, you lose Landry, you've lost the team.
Yeah.
Like he's the heart and soul of the motivation.
He was their biggest proponent. He was literally, when they were trying to recruit players, he was telling them, "Do you want to be part?" Jarvis Landry was the people calling those players, saying, "Do you want to be part of something special?"
Yeah,
because this is going to be special.
Yeah, we don't get OBJ without Landry.
No.
But I don't know what the future holds for OBJ. I mean,
he said he wants to stay.
I hope they give it another year. I don't think you can. It would be a shame to leave this year after just this year. Like, you got to give it another year.
Yeah. Well, and I actually think even regardless of this year, I truly believe that OBJ is the most talented receiver in football, even after this year.
Michael Thomas, man.
I think Michael Thomas is the most consistent player in football. I think OBJ is the most talented.
Physical. I don't know. I might have to go Julio on that with physical talent. Julio's a freak, man.
But he has such a problem in the red zone where and listen, even though OBJ did drop some passes this year, and I think a lot of it had to do with culture, I really do. But even though he dropped some passes this year, he's also made, in the few years he's been in there, the most insane catches out of any receiver ever.
That's what's so frustrating, though.
When you see him drop one,
and then you're like, man, that hit you in both hands, and there was nobody within 10 yards of you. Like, and it makes it worse for a guy like that when he drops something like that. It's just you hone in on it. Like, oh man, how could you drop that?
Yeah, you for sure do. And I will say Baker did have a lot of drop passes throughout the year, regardless of all his receivers.
Tipped interceptions.
Yes.
I think you build that team around the running backs, get yourself some help on the O line, and it could be a whole different ball.
For sure, that's what you do. Yeah. I think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Is Kareem Hunt on a 1-year deal? Is he gone after this year?
I don't know, but they need to pay him. And here's think about.
Well, the thing is, do you really pay him? Because you have Nick Chubb.
Yeah, but I don't know. I like the idea of having those two guys because of what Kareem can do out of the backfield catching the ball. I mean, Chubb can do it too, but not quite to the extent of what Kareem can. And you keep each of them fresh the whole season. The amount of pressure it takes off of Baker to have those two guys. And I mean, can you think you might be able to think of a running back tandem where one of the running backs is like a better guy than both of those two,
like Kamara and Ingram.
Can you think of two running backs together that are that good, like, ever?
I can't think of. I think there's a high possibility that if they're on separate teams, that those two are the best two running backs in football.
Yeah, they could be the best
without a doubt.
Both could be top 5 easy.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it would be ideal for you guys to keep both. I think it would be hard unless people are still nervous about signing Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
Or if they signed him, if the Browns are smart, they signed him to like a 3-year deal for chump change.
Oh no, we do have him next year. So this year doesn't count. This last half, because it was a half of a year. Yeah, we still get him for next year, and that counts as the year.
Then you get a coach that is like, hey, we're running gaming the fuck out of these people. We're literally going to switch about every play. Yeah. Because I think where a lot of people think with Kareem Hunt, because of his size and stuff like that he is not an up-the-gut running back, but they're wrong. He was very good yards after contact. Yeah. Very good.
That's the thing, is both of them can do it all. I mean, Chubb is a little bit and one of them is just a little bit better than the other at the other thing. Like, Kareem is just a little bit better at catching out of the backfield. Chubb's a little bit better at running up the gut, but they can both do it. So you don't know which either of them is going to do at any time.
Right. Like with a lot of teams where they have two running backs, you could be like, okay, this is probably a throwing play, and that's why this running back is in, or it's going to be an outside run.
But one of them just might take the fullback role and you're running it right up the gut.
Exactly. I do agree. It would be great if they keep both in. I do think regardless of whether they had both or whether they had one, they do need to focus around the run game. You got two incredible running backs.
Certainly.
If you end up only having one after this season, then you have one incredible running back.
And you have one that's got fresher legs, because that's a hugely important thing with running backs, is like just the amount of carries on them there's a number there. Like, you can only give them so much.
Now, it is one reason why I don't think the offensive line was as bad as you say it is, because Nick Chubb blew the fucking door. I mean, he was the leading rusher in the NFL.
They were better at run blocking than they were at pass blocking.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's obviously two wildly different things.
Yeah.
So
we'll stick with football for a second, and we'll go to the other thing that we disagree on in Lamar Jackson. For lack of a better term, I would say you are a Lamar Jackson hater.
Well, I don't hate the guy. You know what I mean? I've seen that type of style so many times, and every time people, come out, oh, they're gonna change the game, and they're oh, look, they're a stud, they're a superstar, and it always fizzles out. It never ends up with them holding the trophy at the end. So to me, the guy, like, if the guy is gonna win championships, he has to develop into a pure passer. Like, I've just never seen it until he wins the Super Bowl. I'm gonna be on that train.
Right. I do think that you are correct that no more pure running quarterback has won a championship.
Right.
I do think Lamar Jackson is different. I think he made massive progression between last year and this year on his passing game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little gut-wrenching to see how big of a step he did take from year 1 to 2.
Yeah, because he did. He made a big step. He was a lot better passer this year than last year. And he is definitely running. I do change my aspect, as you brought up. I said that I thought he was changing the game. I have changed that to say I don't think he's changing the game. But the reason why is because you're just not going to have enough guys that can do what he does to change the game.
Well,
he's going to be an outlier.
There is reason to think that the game could change that way now because of the way college has been, and there's so many of these guys coming out of college. The offensive lines are getting smaller.
Yeah.
And if the offensive line pool that they have to pick from in the NFL gets smaller, then they have to have guys who can move in the backfield, and thus the game changes. But
I do think that has more to do with the offensive line than it does the quarterback.
Yeah, it seems like we get close to making that change every so often, and then it fades back. They end up
the last big example is Michael Vick.
Yeah,
and while Michael Vick did some amazing things, he had a big arm.
Yeah,
he was not very accurate.
Yeah,
I do think Lamar Jackson from his first year to the second year, he has proven to been more accurate. Now, does he make some bad calls? Yeah. But I think when you look at his playoff game last year and you look at his playoff game this year, there are wild differences. If he didn't have those 7 or 8 drop passes, I mean, he's throwing for almost 500 yards and running for 148.
And Tennessee is kind of built to beat the Ravens where, they run it up the gut. And the Browns, I mean, early on in the season showed that the Ravens were susceptible to just pound it up the middle on them.
Yeah.
And, the Titans did that to the Patriots the previous week, and then they did it to the Ravens the week after.
Derrick Henry's a freak of nature.
Yeah, how is he so tall and
just big?
Yeah,
he's
a big
huge.
Man. He's huge.
He literally for years I thought he was going to be the best running back in the NFL, and
I wrote him off.
I didn't.
Yeah.
It kept not happening, and I kept saying the problem is they don't realize that he does have a little bit of speed. So the Titans were just constantly running him straight up the gut.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a sweep guy, but he's an off tackle guy.
Yeah.
Run him off tackle a little bit so that he can get a little bit of space.
Take a step.
And he will stiff arm or run somebody over. But when you're running him straight up the gut every single time, then there's 4, 5 tacklers that are putting their arms on him every time right in the middle. They see him, they're like, okay, up the gut. Let him to the outside. He's got more speed. I mean, he doesn't run a 4.4, but he runs a 4.5.
Yeah, it'll run you over.
Yeah.
But the thing with Lamar Jackson, just that style, it seems like, especially once you get in the playoffs, all the teams are good, and they're all, they're fighting as hard as they can. Everything keys on just stop anything that comes out of that backfield, force him to throw the ball. And then it always gets put on him to throw the ball, and the guys just never, they make a key, interception or whatever in the playoffs. It feels like they never get over that hump. And I feel like it seems apparent that the only way to consistently win championships is to have a pocket passer.
Yeah. And I do see that. I do, and I've seen you and Wayne argue a little bit and talking about Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I do think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
without
he's
a
got
doubt.
a cannon.
I think he actually changes the actual game.
Yeah, well, like some of the throws he makes, they're from nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing.
Like, did he throw this underhand?
Yeah, no look passes.
Yeah.
Around the back.
But I do think Lamar Jackson ends up winning a championship. I do.
I hope not. That's a Browns fan.
Yeah, I can see where you would hope not, but I do think he ends up winning one. Man, but football wise, I think that's about all we need to cover. But me and you, we are big.
What do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?
The Super Bowl this year?
Yeah,
I think
I think Green Bay surprises everybody.
I would say, I'm trying to think who. So on that side, I think it's Green Bay or San Francisco.
Yeah.
And who's on the other side?
It's Tennessee and the Chiefs.
Tennessee and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say Chiefs or San Francisco. I think that 49ers defense is very real.
Well, they're really good. The thing with the Packers is, they were quiet 12-4 all year.
Honestly, they were very quiet because I didn't even realize they had that good of a record.
Yeah.
I knew they were going to make the playoffs, but I didn't know they had that good of a record.
And I think everybody kind of wrote them off because they've been one and done in the playoffs so many years, and they just can't get it done.
Yeah.
But there's a whole new coaching staff. And they still have Aaron Rodgers. Right. I think everybody is just not thinking about them. And, they are, and they're still in it.
And I think at the beginning of the year, people were very much questioning it because it seemed like there was some animosity for some reason, like very small amount, not like previous years, but between Aaron Rodgers and the head coach.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year. But then that talk did completely dissipate.
Mm-hmm. And then they were not talked about at all.
And they were not talked about at all.
Winning games.
Yeah, they were just winning games quietly.
Yeah.
And if you were a fantasy football fan, you could start either of their running backs and you would have been fine.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jones is the truth.
Yeah, they finally have a running game. That's the thing. And
they
have a good defense, and they have Aaron Rodgers. And they did lose to San Francisco pretty badly, I think, in the regular season, but playoffs are different.
Well, and I'll tell you, that's one thing that talking about they lost to San Francisco, that's one thing whenever people would say Lamar Jackson is going to lose to this team, like they're going to lose to San Francisco, then he beats them up. Yeah. Then he's going to lose to Tom Brady. He beats him up.
Yeah.
He beat people up. Actually, let's get into that. What do you think Tom Brady does next year? You think he's staying in New England?
I don't know. I think the temptation has to be there for him to go to the Chargers. You know what I mean? Giselle probably wants to move to LA. And he's been taking, smaller contracts his whole career. He probably wants to take the big one at the end, and
that's what somebody brought up to me, and I thought, you know what, that makes sense.
In LA, they need to sell tickets, and who's going to sell tickets? Tom Brady, for sure.
Well, and one thing, I used to hate the Patriots. I cannot hate them anymore.
Yeah, they've wormed their way into people's hearts.
There's no way around it. Like, people can say, oh, they cheat. If you don't think every football team is trying to find those ways, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Every football team is trying to do that. I don't
understand why a team wouldn't pick up another team's signals.
Yeah.
Like, if they're just blatantly giving them on the sideline.
Yeah, I'm not even sure why it's illegal.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
doing them, I could see them.
Yeah, I feel like you should just try to hide that.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's illegal. Mm-hmm. They actually the Astros, they just suspended the two people from the baseball team, the Astros, for picking up signals, and then the Astros fired them. And I'm like, first of all, every team is doing that, and if you can figure out what their signals are, good on you. So, what the fuck are we talking about? Like, to me, that's part of scouting.
We got a guy with a photographic memory, can he draw it later whenever he gets back? Like, we can't record it, though.
To me, that's part of it. That's just like football coaches used to not cover their mouth when they called plays. Now they cover their mouth. Yeah, man, figure out how to not let people see. Yeah. But so I've changed my tune on the Patriots. I used to hate them, and a lot of it came from after watching documentaries on Belichick and Tom Brady, because I don't love him or hate him. Tom Brady's a gamer.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude is headbutting his linemen. He's losing his fucking mind on the field. Yeah. He's arguing with refs. People say the NFL shows them preference. I don't think that's necessarily true.
No.
I think NFL refs are just human and they fuck up. Because every
game, they have calls that are terrible for every team.
Yeah, my favorite one is the one that they say, "Look, here's the clock, and it says 0, and they haven't hiked the ball yet. Why didn't they get that?" Then when I really started paying attention to the clock, when I'm watching games, it happens all the time.
All the time.
So I think I think maybe the clock we're seeing and the clock that the refs are seeing are two different clocks because it happens
or it's
all the
that
time.
Split second from when they look up, it says one, they look down, and then
Right. It just is what it is.
You can catch a frame, still frame of it.
Right. It just is what it is. Actually, the same thing came up with in boxing, Wilder versus Fury. Did you see people complained about? They said that it took too long for Fury to get up because the count didn't start right away from the ref.
Well, he's responding to the count, so what does it matter?
Right. It's not on Fury.
Yeah,
whatever the ref is counting, that's what he's going by. I think Fury was knocked dead for about 5 seconds, and then after the 5 seconds, he was like, "Hold on, what's the count at?
Okay, I better get up.
I'm gonna chill here for just a second." And you said 8, and now I'm gonna sit up like the Undertaker.
When's the next one?
Man, I think February.
Oh man,
it's
gonna be good.
I was actually. This is one thing I definitely want to bring up here. You got to start watching the fights with us, man.
The UFC fights.
Well, and I think we're gonna get that boxing fight too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you should start watching them with us, man. We get every one. You've been to Brian's house before, right? Yeah. Well, Carl. We watch every single. He watches every single one, whether people come or not, whether it's a pay-per-view or not. He watches every single one, but he gets every pay-per-view, and we always watch them. You should start coming over and watching them, man.
Definitely should. I watch them myself. Honestly, I mean, with you guys it'd be fun, but I usually watch them by myself. Some people invite me, and I'm like, I just kind of like watching them by myself.
Well, I'll tell you what's crazy is I used to feel like that a lot, but this group has actually, because it's never now, like, remember back in the day when we used to watch them together, it'd be like big parties.
Yeah.
Now it's not like the big parties. It's actually like maybe.
Why doesn't he just kick him? You got those people.
Yeah. Now
you see, if he lifts his leg, he's going to put him straight on his ass. So.
Now we got we maybe got 3 or 4 couples. It did like a couple single people, and everybody is actually really into it. Actually, a lot of them now, they're not training to try to actually fight, but they do the training for exercise. Yeah. So they have them
for robbers and such.
Yeah, but they have a much better understanding now, and it's a lot of fun to watch them over the now. Like, people used to think I was crazy because I would just like an announcer would, I would semi-predict what they're doing. Like, I'm not predicting it. I can see he's going for a Kimura. He's trying to set that up. I can see it.
Yeah.
Now people are like, they'll say it before me sometimes. They used to think I should be an announcer because they're like, you know exactly what they're doing. I'm like, no, people are better at that than me.
Yeah. Well, but literally, I say things all the time, and then Rogan starts talking about it. Mm-hmm. I must know some of this. Like,
I'll tell you, I'm trying to think of what fight just happened. What are the last big pay-per-views? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I do want to get into UFC. So let's just go ahead and roll right into the pay-per-view that's about to come up. Conor and Cowboy.
What a coincidence.
I do think, we're both big Conor fans, right?
Yeah. Well, I was a big Conor fan, but now I want the guy to do good. I still am a fan, but I don't know what to expect from him anymore,
Yeah, I'm hoping he really has put the focus in. I hate that the fight is at 170. I don't think he belongs at 170 in any way, shape, or form. I think it's too much weight for him, and
if what he says is valid, that he's put on some weight.
He looks great.
Yeah, and he's naturally there right now. Maybe that's not his leanest, meanest fighting shape. But
he's naturally under.
Yeah,
he right now is still.
I think
under
he's going to come in at like 164. He's probably not even going to weigh.
I think the last interview I heard, he said he was at like 167.
Yeah,
and that's fine, but it seems like his power is diminished at that.
Yeah, which is his major weapon.
Yeah, his left-hand power is definitely his major weapon.
But we say that because he clocked Diaz with it how many times? But that's Diaz,
Yeah, when's Diaz really been knocked out?
Yeah,
once in his whole career?
He might sleep Cowboy in one,
Yeah, well, I do feel that unless Cowboy decides to try to take it to the ground, I feel like he just picks Cowboy apart. I love Cowboy.
I do too, and but we all see that he's on the downside of his career. Honestly, if Conor can't beat Cowboy at this stage, then Conor is nowhere near what he was.
No, that he's done. Yeah. Because Cowboy, Cowboy, while he is at the later stage of his career, he has also always been a straight up and down fighter.
Yeah, he's still dangerous.
Well, I'm saying, but he's definitely still dangerous because he's got kicks, he's got punches, he's good on the ground. He's got what, the most total finishes in UFC history or something like that,
out of sheer amount of fights.
Right, sheer amount of fights for sure. But because he fights, he's the only fighter.
Weekend.
He's the only fighter in the UFC to fight between 3 and 4 times his entire career.
He fought my mom 3 days ago.
Yeah. But he's a straight up and down fighter. He literally has this very stiff stand up technique. He's very straight up and down. He's not a lot of head movement. He's very straight up and down.
Yeah.
And Conor, in my opinion, from what I've seen in him in the past, should be able to pick that apart very quickly.
Yeah, there's no reason he shouldn't.
I actually saw one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. They said, this guy, I feel like you are the one that introduced me to that group, and it's a terrible group. But it's a Facebook group, UFC something. I can't remember what it is. But there's a lot of Conor haters, and one guy says that he thinks that Conor, who's the guy that came from Bellator? Why can't I think of his name right now? Eddie Alvarez. He says that fight was 100% fixed because it's the first time Conor McGregor put his hands behind his back, and it was what led up to the Mayweather fight and all this stuff. Like, he put his hands behind his back because Alvarez wasn't engaging. No. And that's how you get Alvarez to engage, so that he can hit him with a counter strike. Yeah. And he beat the fuck out of that man.
Yeah, I mean, if the guy was throwing the fight, would he make himself look that terrible? That
bad.
You at least want to make it look a little better, I think.
Yeah. I just think if somebody's willing to just straight up stand up with Conor, you're in for a long night.
There's almost nobody that really should be able to. I mean,
when Conor's on top of his game, you shouldn't be able to stand.
Khabib was able to smack him, but I think that was more because of Conor being focused on Khabib taking him down, and it caught him by surprise.
100%. He did rock Conor with one punch. I mean, rocked him. And I completely agree with you. And I think it's hilarious when people say, "Oh, that shows that Conor's not that good." Conor was looking for the takedown. Yeah. This guy's gonna take him down.
He was looking down.
Yeah,
I think
he knew it. Whether he was looking down or not, he was worried about the takedown.
Yeah,
that was his main focus in that fight. Try not to get taken down.
Right.
But I also think that happens to Conor in the Khabib fight every time.
Yeah, but I mean, if Conor comes out and looks like Conor of old and dispatches Cowboy easily, it's gonna, all them fires will get reignited, and people are gonna wonder, like, is he, was he not focused last time? Because he was at the height of all that stuff at that time, and he hadn't fought in a while. And how seriously did he take it? And I still feel like Conor did put up a decent fight. He won a round against Khabib,
which is hard to do.
People aren't winning rounds. He did defend well against those takedowns. Of course, he gassed like Conor does, but when he wasn't gassed, he moved. He was able to get his hips moving around under him. He was able to keep Khabib at bay. Khabib wasn't able to really attack him while he was on the ground.
Khabib did nowhere near the amount of damage against Conor that he did against other people.
Yeah, remember what was what's his name?
You talking about Michael Johnson?
Johnson, yeah. When
he literally was telling him.
Pulling his feet out from under him and smacking him and telling him, I must win. I must.
Yeah, you have to give up. Yeah. You have to give up.
I will win the title. It was scary, man.
Yeah, it was scary. And he literally, if you look at what Khabib has done against other people on the ground, then you would have to say Conor did a good job on the ground.
Comparatively to other people.
But what's insane is how good Al Iaquinta did against Khabib.
Yeah. Was that short notice all around for?
It was short notice. It was short notice all around, and there's no way Khabib took him seriously.
No, probably not.
No way. Khabib was like, I'm going to try to show that I can punch people.
Has Khabib fought Gaethje?
No.
See, and that's the thing is the real fight for Conor is Gaethje. Like, if you were, I mean, because of his layoff, the Cowboy fight's a better fight for Conor. But if we're talking like, where does he belong in the rankings? And like, if you were to plug Conor in where he should be, the fight should be Gaethje. Like, that should be the real test.
Without a doubt. I completely agree, and I also think
it should be the next fight. Whether he wins, if he beats Cowboy, it should still be the next fight. But they'll launch him right into a title fight.
Well, they will, but here's the problem though: is if Khabib makes it through Ferguson, which I know the hype behind Ferguson, but I think he will. I think Khabib makes it through that fight. Do you agree?
I was listening to Chael talk the other day, and he was talking about how Khabib, he would line up 6 guys and wrestle them until they couldn't go, one after another,
and way heavier than him.
And he would, he starts with the best guy. The best guy lasts 20 minutes. The next guy lasts 15. The next guy lasts 15. And he keeps going down the line of the guys until the least experienced guy lasts, but he's wrestling 6 guys until they cannot go anymore, and he's mauling them all. And Chael said the only other guy he's ever personally seen do that was Ferguson.
Well, Ferguson definitely has the wind.
So,
yeah.
I mean, Ferguson, he's a little more reckless,
He's got the X factor.
Yeah.
Is what I would call it.
Yeah.
He definitely, and he could bloody.
And it could hurt him, or it could win him the fight.
And he could definitely bloody Khabib from the bottom. Because he's got elbows like knives.
Yeah.
So he could definitely do that. The way Khabib is, I think if he gets you on your back, it's over.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of that. But I mean, the fight,
when you watch it, you're like, why can't they get away from him?
Yeah.
Why can't they get away from Khabib? I don't understand.
He's just strong. He's too strong.
Yeah.
It's got to be. I mean, they're ragdolled under him.
It's insane.
They can't do anything.
But so where I think the qualms with Conor getting that fight if he beats Cowboy, the qualms I think are silly with him getting a title fight, because the only 2 options for Khabib if he beats Tony Ferguson are Gaethje or Conor.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say Conor should fight Gaethje next, because if Khabib does beat Ferguson, then he has to fight Gaethje or Conor next.
Yeah.
He has to.
Yeah. You got to keep the champ fighting.
Yeah. And I will say, I think Gaethje might actually have the best chance of beating Khabib, because he has a massive wrestling background. Yeah. He doesn't use it.
He's the dark horse of the whole thing, for sure.
I think he is. One, he has a crazy knockout power.
Yeah.
But he is also like a world-class wrestler that he just doesn't use it in MMA. He just goes out there and bangs.
Yeah.
But he
likes to put on a show.
Yeah. But he's one of the best wrestlers in MMA if you look at his pedigree.
Yeah.
So I do think he prevents one of the biggest challengers.
Lightweight has kind of been diminished. There was not 2 years ago, it was like one of the deeper ones, and it's not as deep anymore. Like Khabib kind of ran through everybody, and then there's Conor, and then there's everybody else.
I used to talk a lot of shit on Khabib because I was like, who has he really fought? And then when you see him fight the top level guys, and then when I looked back, like he beat RDA back in the day.
Yeah.
Like RDA ended up being the champ before Khabib.
Well, even up until the Conor fight, there was reason to think that, he hasn't really fought anybody.
RDA was the biggest name he had fought.
Yeah, and he's dominated these guys, but they're not really that top level. But after seeing the Conor fight, you're like, man, he can do this to anybody. It's not, just because the guys he fought before weren't that skilled, it doesn't seem to matter. He's just
right.
He mauls them anyway.
And you could say whatever you want about Conor not being able to handle wrestlers, but I think that's completely incorrect. I mean, he handled Chad Mendes.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, Chad Mendes
smaller size, but
was wrestling the shit, definitely a smaller size, and Chad Mendes was wrestling the shit out of him, but he couldn't do anything when he got him down.
No, he got right back up.
And Conor ended up fucking him up.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have a real big problem with the hate that is out there for Conor. Did you watch the documentary on Conor? I forget what it's called.
I think I saw pieces of it. Yeah,
but
Notorious.
The cool thing was, one, not only did he really predict his fights, including the Jose Aldo fight.
Yeah. Yeah, that one to a T. Like he's
a T. He's gonna do this.
He's gonna overextend, and I'm gonna
fucking crack him. And not only did he do that, but Conor, when he was first coming up, he took all challenges.
Yeah.
When Dana White went to him to tell him that Jose Aldo had to pull out of the first fight, Conor's response was, cool, who am I fighting?
Yeah.
He didn't say, okay, man, we're gonna wait, I got to talk to my team and figure out what we're gonna do, like whether or not we'll accept another fight.
When he was in a position to, not put himself out there.
He was definitely in position. He was at the point for the Aldo fight. He was still, even though he hadn't won the championship yet, he was still the biggest star in the UFC. It was him or Ronda. He was still the biggest star, and his immediate response was, "Cool, who am I fighting?"
Well, the same thing happened with Diaz. It was going to be RDA that he was supposed to.
He was supposed to fight RDA for that title. For that title. That's what I love about that fight is people were like, "Oh, well, Nate Diaz beat him." Dude,
yeah,
he took that fight short notice. Nate, I love Nate. Don't get me wrong. I know you're not as big of a fan of him now. I feel like you used to be, but you kind of paid attention to his stats and everything like that, and you became not as big of a fan, which is understandable.
I'm more of a fan of him as a person than I am as a fighter. Like he's overrated. It's his fans. They overrate him, and they're not willing to admit that he's just an entertaining guy. He's not
gamer.
The greatest fighter ever.
He's a gamer. He's not the greatest fighter ever. He's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's one of the top level fighters, but I do agree with you. He's not the greatest fighter ever.
And they have some, the Diaz brothers. They have something to offer the sport for sure.
For sure,
like their game, should be incorporated, should be used, it should be looked at, it should be studied, but they themselves are beatable.
Yeah, without a doubt. But but for that fight, literally, he was planning for a lightweight fight. Then the guy bailed out.
Yeah.
And they offered it to Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz took it but said, "I will only fight at 170." And Conor said, "Sure, I've never fought at 170 ever in my life. No problem."
That's 2 weight. And he jumped up 2 weight classes at the time.
He went up 2 weight classes.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people don't understand is what a difference that makes on your cardio.
Oh, yeah.
When you're heavier like that, it affects your cardio massively.
Yeah.
And
especially when it's weight you weren't planning on carrying at all. Like he was planning on shedding all that. Like
right.
It wasn't like he got bigger and like got adjusted to carrying it.
No.
He was carrying extra weight.
Because it was only like 3 or 4 weeks that they had to change that up. And then what I love about Conor is when Conor lost that fight, you could not offer Conor another fight.
Yeah, he wanted to avenge it.
It was not only, "I'm going to fight Nate Diaz again." They were like, "Okay, cool, do it at 155. And he was like, "No, I lost at 170. Yeah. I'm going to fight him again at 170. Yeah. That is a different breed.
And, people get lost in what he says before the fight, but I always appreciate the things he says after, like
without a doubt.
Especially after the loss, he was really humble with himself, and he was really, accurate about himself and what he did wrong and what he needs to look at. And then, he came back and he improved those things and he won the fight. And I'm like, how can you guys knock this guy? Like,
and he definitely won that fight. I see people that say like
it was close, but he won.
He won. If you look at the stats, he won. I literally saw a person post the picture, like a screenshot of the stats from that fight, and they said, "I don't understand how Conor won that." But
all the numbers are better.
But in three of the 5 rounds, he had not only more strikes, he had more significant strikes. Yeah, that's how he won.
And if you look at the fight as just the story of the fight, he still won. He still persevered and came back from being winded and won the fight.
He won the fight. There's no way around it. I don't understand. I understand. I'll tell you why I don't understand the hate for Conor, because I do understand the hate for Conor for some of the stuff he does outside the ring. Yeah. Like you said earlier, though, I love what happens after the fight, because after the fight, whether win or lose, he's very humble. Yeah. Like, actually, he talked so crazy to Jose Aldo.
Yeah, and he felt bad.
And after he knocked him out, he did feel bad. Yeah. He literally told him, he was like, "You've been a great champion. You're a great champion. We'll do this again. We'll do this again." People are like, "Oh, yeah, okay, sure, you say that," but then he didn't do it again. Well, the UFC offered him buku bucks to move up and fight for that belt.
I don't think Jose wanted to do it again.
I don't think Jose wanted to do it again either. No. Jose didn't seem like he wanted to do that fight in the first place, to be honest. He was very timid for the whole build-up and everything of that fight. But
No, the first words out of Conor's mouth, I believe, like even to Joe, were, I feel bad for Jose. He's been a great champion,
Right. He's
wish
always
he could have went a little longer.
He promotes the fight beforehand, and he's always extremely humble, win or lose, afterwards.
Yeah, and he's elevating everybody around him. You know what I mean? As much as the guys that fight him might hate him, he's putting money in their pocket. Like,
people are making more money because of him too. Like, not even just the people that fight him, but he's taken the sport to another level where people are making more money per fight. People are like, oh well, the higher up guys aren't making that much more money than they did before. Yeah, but the lower level guys are making more money than they did before.
And I think people get lost in the spectacle with him and don't, they're caught up they're caught up in the WWE-ness of it, the show, and not like, they're not really just like analyzing what's really going on with the real fighter and who he really is.
Right. Because if you look at who he really is, I mean, this guy literally came from nothing. I mean, he was a plumber.
Yeah, and I think it's gone to his head. I mean, I think there's
recently
that's unfortunate.
It has.
Yeah, but I think there's a chance he's coming back, and the things he's been saying recently, it seems like he is.
I hope he comes back to old form. I hope he's done with that nonsense of. I mean, listen, he won. He lost that Mayweather fight, but in that Mayweather fight, he won life.
Yeah, I mean, he got to the top of the world.
He got to the top of the world. He made more money than any MMA fighter has ever made. You don't think that's going to go to your head for a second?
Only down from there,
And you don't think that's going to go to your head for a second? Like, you made more money than any MMA fighter dreamed of making in one fight.
And hopefully he went out and enjoyed his accomplishments, and now he's like, okay, now it's about legacy.
Yeah.
Now I got to go, keep this thing going.
Yeah, and actually I'm going to get to the shit going to people's head here again in a second, but I'm going to have to take a bathroom break real quick, and I'm going to say, for any future advertisers, good place for an ad.
The P ads.
All right, back from the break, and I did want to hit real quick, just because I feel like we didn't clarify it enough, your pick for Conor Cowboy.
Oh, I mean, it's got to be Conor.
Yeah, I have to agree. I honestly don't even think it matters much if Cowboy tries to take him down.
Now, would I be stunned if Cowboy won? I don't think so. But,
no.
But, the overwhelming odds point to Conor.
And not even just the betting odds, just when you look at their two styles, you got to say Conor. Conor's just way more fluid on his feet.
If because the reason it wouldn't stun me isn't because of skill, it's because it wouldn't stun me if Conor's just he doesn't care anymore and he's out of it. And,
that's true. That's true.
That's why it wouldn't surprise me. But skill wise, it would surprise me because Conor, if he is at all what he was, he should walk right through it.
Now, if Conor wins, do you think he goes welterweight or back to lightweight?
Oh. I mean, I don't do. It depends. Like, does he believe he can beat Khabib? I don't know that he does. Like, he obviously says
I don't know that he does. I don't know if he can.
Yeah, but the Masvidal fight would be huge.
Big moneymaker. And a fight I want to see.
Maybe the biggest fight ever. Yeah. And Masvidal is on a meteoric rise. And Conor is Conor.
Well, and Masvidal's rise is even crazier than Conor's.
Yeah, it's fast.
It's fast, and
for a guy that's been there, has already been there for a long time,
fighting forever. Yeah. And really, the wins he has should not be enough to make him this big of a star so quick. Ben Askren, yeah, okay. Me and you both called him getting his ass beat in the UFC as soon as he walked into the octagon.
Yeah,
and I love people saying that he came past his prime. Well, he has less MMA fights than most people in the UFC, and he's younger than a lot of the top level guys in the UFC. So get out of here with that nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't dislike Askren. I just, people were touting him like he was gonna walk in and just out wrestle everybody and ragdoll everybody, and I'm like, man, all these guys come from these other organizations. Everybody says that stuff, and it never really works out. Like.
So what it worked out for the best for until he fought Cotter was Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah.
Every single other person from another promotion has just got they've never even made it to the title.
Yeah,
You
I
know
think
what I mean?
Gilbert Melendez was the one I thought was gonna actually might end up coming over and being the best guy at the division at the time.
I thought he would too, but
Yeah, when he
not.
was the champion at Strikeforce, I was like, man, he might be the best lightweight in the world. And it didn't work out.
got proven very wrong.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to take a spin from this. We're going to go to movies, and something I normally do at the beginning of the podcast that I forgot to do with you, but I'm going to try to take you through. I'm going to give you movies and or shows. We'll say the top 5 things you think people should watch.
Shows or movies or just either one?
Your call. You want to do movies or you want to do both?
Top 5. Well, it's very... top 5 things you should watch. Well, okay. True Detective season 1. Everybody should see that. I think everybody I think that thing should be studied in film schools. You know, like that. It's a masterpiece of a season of any. You know, it's probably the best single season of anything I've ever watched. In my life.
I completely agree. Matthew McConaughey, unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think even though he did win an Academy Award, I still feel like people sleep on Matthew McConaughey, and it's crazy to me. I think he's one of the best actors to date. Not even just of this generation, I think to date.
Yeah.
And Woody Harrelson, obviously, I think he's a beast. We've had recent discussions on it.
And I think True Detective is if not the best Matthew McConaughey has ever been. he's just... I don't know. There's something that draws you to him in that show. Like, he's just really good. And, yeah, and Woody's good in it, too. And, that scene where they, it's like 12 minutes long where he's just trying to fight his way out of the ghetto. It's just one long shot, and he's going through house to house. And it's just amazing, man. Like, it builds and builds. It's so good.
I think Matthew McConaughey is one of the best at showing inner struggles.
Yeah.
Like, inside his own being.
Have you seen Mud?
Yeah,
It's a good little indie flick, man.
I don't think it gets recognized enough.
No.
I just recently watched it, and right after I watched it, I bought it on Blu-ray. Just immediately afterwards, I got on Amazon and bought it on Blu-ray.
Pretty good. Pulp Fiction, that's one of the I think everybody should see that because when I watched that, it's my favorite movie of all time. Like, it's
That's your favorite of all time?
I mean, it's hard for me to really say what my favorite movie of all time is, but
It's
that's
tough.
the one that sticks. That's easy to throw out. Like, yeah, it's probably my favorite movie.
Yeah.
And because, like, when I first seen that, it changed my idea of like what movies could be. Like
I can see that.
It's told out of order.
For sure.
It's not. It's about all these random things. Like,
people love Guy Ritchie, but I think a lot of that came from him, came from Quentin Tarantino beforehand. Because I do believe that and Reservoir Dogs came before Guy Ritchie's films.
Yeah. You can see its influence throughout everything from then on. Not that it makes my list, but Twin Peaks is one of those things that, like, if you watch, like, I never watched it when it was on. I was too young, but like I watched the first season recently, and like when you watch that, you can see how it influenced everything after. Like, you can see it, that everything I've watched since this show is used pieces of this show.
It's a show that I really need to check out because I hear just a fucking shit ton about and I think it was even referenced in one of my favorite comedic shows, the show Psych.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever watched it.
Yeah, I know what it is.
You should definitely, if you haven't really watched it, I'll give you the DVDs when you leave here. But to me, that's maybe the best comedic show of all time. And it has an episode. I'm pretty sure that its entire basis of that episode was all the Twin Peaks people from the original show.
Yeah. Well, they recently did a third season on Showtime.
Yeah.
It picks up like so many years later.
Yeah.
Again, that doesn't make my list, but like it's something pretty everybody should watch because it's hugely influential. And like when you do watch it, you can see like, oh, like the show I watch now, they pulled this from this.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad would be the next thing on the list. Like, I think Breaking Bad is one of the only shows that from beginning to end, it just pulls it off. Like most shows, you'll have a great show, but they either go on for a season or two too long, or it gets canceled before it hits the the heights that it truly could have. Breaking Bad is one of the very rare shows that from beginning to end executes on every level, and there's never a wasted moment. And it's this slow build from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And it's just perfect, I think.
I can actually completely agree, and I think people misunderstand me, people that know me personally, because I say all the time that it's a great show, but it was hard for me to watch. Like, I had to take breaks because I didn't start it when it first started. I started later and then caught up, but I had to take breaks from it, not because it wasn't a good show. Excuse me. But I had to take breaks from it because sometimes it's hard for me to watch a show where everybody is kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And in that show, as great as it is,
it becomes overbearing.
It is maybe the best show that was ever done.
Yeah.
But everybody in that show, except for Jesse, may be the biggest piece of shit ever.
Yeah. I still root for Walt through the whole thing, though. Like, I get why people get mad at him, but I'm like, no, do it. Kill him. Take him.
What's so funny is I always say, like, if I was put in those positions, I don't understand why people have such a hard time killing somebody if they chose that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, if you chose this lifestyle, you got to kill somebody sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what the inner struggle is.
You
chose
some
this
eggs,
lifestyle.
you want to make an omelet. Yeah.
Right. But for some reason in that show, I end up just fucking hating him.
Well,
I think one of the big things for me hating him is like with most things in that genre or that category is you could have got out a long time ago.
Yeah, he has. Well, that's what I love. That's what I love about it is like the whole time, he's fighting with himself. Like, he wants it. He loves it. He loves it. Like, that's the
he
thing.
Can't get out of it.
Yeah, it's like the whole time he thinks he's doing it for his family and for, all this stuff. But really, it shows signs throughout that, no, he likes the attention and he likes being that guy. Like,
yeah, he likes being the boss of a gangster organization.
I liked watching that struggle that he wasn't even aware of how much he enjoyed it.
Yeah, he did it. That is for sure one of the best shows, and I hope people don't misunderstand me when I do say that it was hard for me to watch because I think it's an amazing show.
I get what you mean. Like, I can't. It's hard for me. You ever seen Requiem for a Dream?
Yeah,
it's hard for me to watch that movie. Like, I just feel dirty. After I watch it. I'm just like, like life is coming to get me. And
actually, this is since you know what that movie is. Anybody who hasn't watched it, watch it, and you understand what I'm saying. But that movie, the first time I saw it, I was in high school, and I went to Blockbuster, and I was trying to find a movie, and what I saw on the cover of the movie was one of the Wayans brothers, Marlon Wayans.
Yeah, this is going to be great.
A hardcore comedic actor with a blunt in his mouth. Yeah. And I was like, fuck yeah.
The Sixth Man was awesome.
Yeah, fuck yeah, I got this great comedic actor with a blunt in his mouth. I smoke weed. I think this is going to be hilarious. Yeah. So I fucking rent the movie, go home, watch it. Yeah. By the time the movie was over, at the time I smoked weed all the time. Like I said, I was in high school. And I quit smoking weed for like 2 months.
I gotta get my life together.
I gotta get my life together. I can't do any drugs. I should never drink alcohol. This is just crazy.
My grandma is dying a slow hell somewhere.
Yeah. It really fucked me up bad because it is a disturbing movie.
It's just pure despair, man. It
is.
It's a credit to the director, though, man, because
it's a cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, he can make you feel like he makes you feel every minute of it.
Every minute of it.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes the list because it's hard for me. Like, I don't enjoy watching it. It's a great movie, but I hate it.
Right. I may have watched it one more time since then, and the only reason I watched it was to like show somebody else the movie. Like, you got to watch this and then never watch it again.
I mean, the list could change all the time. I'm gonna go ahead and be like, I should have said,
Right. Oh yeah, it's gonna change all the time. But so we'll say we got like 2 things out of there because you said you might not be able to put that on there, but we'll say.
Well, we got Pulp Fiction, we got Breaking Bad, we got True Detective.
Okay, so yeah. So 3.
No Country for Old Men is a movie that you should not only watch, but you should watch it 10 times. Like.
I feel like that's a movie I need to watch again because I remember the hype behind it, and I watched it one time.
You have to watch it.
And
I
didn't have the same feeling that other people did. I
didn't like it the first time I watched it. That's the thing. Like it's one of those movies, man, that every time you watch it, you discover more about it. and you just get it more. Like, and it's so crazy because there's not a lot going on. Like,
no,
it doesn't feel like there's a lot going on in the movie, but like every time you watch it, you unpack more.
Yeah,
and,
I'm gonna have to watch that one again. I'm gonna especially since you said it. I'm gonna watch it again for sure.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch it again probably this week then, for sure.
Yeah, it's just it's the movie. It's just the gift that keeps on giving kind of thing. You know what I mean? Every time I watch it, I'm like, I'd see something else, and I'm like, man, that's so brilliant. Like, I just didn't notice it. The first run through is like, and because of how much it was hyped when I first watched it, I was like, what? That's what everybody was talking about. You know, I felt like you felt.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's one that you gotta give it multiple viewings, I think.
Yeah.
In the Coen Brothers period, I love all their movies. You know.
Yeah. What are some of the other ones that they've done?
Well, The Big Lebowski, obviously.
Obviously.
Great.
Yeah.
The Big Lebowski, No Country for Old Men, Fargo. Which, have you seen the show Fargo?
The first season was one of the best things I ever saw in my life.
Second season I enjoyed a lot. The third season I fell off.
I fell off in the second, but the first season I watched it after it had aired, and it was incredible.
First season is much like the movie. Like, you know, it's
really. I gotta watch. I've never actually watched the movie. Shockingly,
the first season is like, it's not. It's just much in the spirit of the movie. You know, it feels like the movie.
Yeah.
The second one, a little less so, but still is a good story. I don't know. The third one I haven't been able to get into yet.
Yeah, I really actually, Fargo is one that's been on my list for a while that for whatever reason I haven't watched. And I think I'm actually, probably after this podcast, I'm just going to go on Amazon and buy it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed my Blu-ray wall out there. I'm
starting to do that too. I have a bunch of DVDs, but I'm converting and rebuying stuff on Blu-ray.
It's just something that my dad had a lot of DVDs, and I just feel like I like having the actual copy.
Me too, and I feel like Blu-rays are like the last physical medium, so I feel like I'm safe in collecting those now. Like, I was collecting DVDs, and then they moved to Blu-ray, but I'm like, what more are they gonna? It's just gonna go digital after this. So.
It's Blu-ray or 4K.
Yeah.
Then it's
that's why I buy all the 4K ultras.
It's gonna be. It depends on the movie.
Yeah.
If it's a movie that has a lot of like special effects, I go 4K.
Yeah.
If it's Peanut Butter Falcon, I go Blu-ray, because why spend the extra $10 when I don't need it? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not special effects in it. Which, by the way, did you watch that movie yet?
No, that's
it's fucking Shia LaBeouf.
The kid's a wrestling fan.
Fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's one really corny part of it, like one really, really, really corny part of it. Doesn't ruin the movie. It's just so fucking good. Like, it's kind of in the style of Mud, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of got that vibe when I seen the photo. You know what I mean? The front cover. I was like, it reminds me of like.
I legitimately thought that Shia LaBeouf may be nominated for it.
Yeah.
I really like Shia LaBeouf as an actor.
Yeah. I don't know. He's all right.
Yeah, I like him as an actor.
I haven't seen a lot of his like indie stuff. You know what I mean? I know him from the Transformers, so it's like. Okay.
Did you ever see The Greatest Game Ever Played?
No. There is a movie with Shia LaBeouf called A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints. It's pretty good. It's from like way back.
Way back.
Yeah,
I actually did see that. It is good. That's way back. It's kind of like a weaker form of Kids.
Yeah. Less less tragic, I think. Mm-hmm. Or less. Kids is like that's like a requiem. Like
it's as tragic as it gets. You know, that guy was like the guy that wrote and produced that movie, or wrote and directed that movie. He was like 18 when he did it.
Is that Harmony Korine?
Harmony Korine, yeah. You ever see his interviews on David Letterman?
No.
You should 100% watch those.
Yeah.
That dude had a massive problem. He actually got kicked off indefinitely off of David Letterman.
Oh, I gotta see that.
Because he was, it wasn't because of the interviews. A lot of people think it's because of the interviews, because when you watch them, you're like, what the fuck? It's hilarious. It's fun to watch. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is this? But he actually, he got real heavy into drugs.
Yeah.
And he got kicked off. They ended up, James Franco, because he did Spring Breakers.
Yeah.
So
where he plays basically Riff Raff.
Right, exactly. But that dude that directed, what's his name again? Harmony what?
Harmony Korine.
Harmony Korine. He was the mind behind that movie. And so James Franco, that you find out in the interview with David Letterman that he's got a lot of love for him, blah, blah, blah. And he asks David Letterman, why did he get permanently banned from your show? And it turns out that while he was in his drug-induced days, David Letterman went into him and Harmon and Meryl Streep were on the show at the same time. And David Letterman went into Meryl Streep's dressing room, and Meryl Streep wasn't in there, but Harmon was, and he was digging through her purse.
She's got to have good drugs.
She's got to have good drugs. She's got to have good money. She's got to have stuff worth money in there. And he was digging through her purse, so he kicked her off. Harmon's story is that he pushed her, and that's why. But David Letterman says, hand to God, that there's no way this helps me or hurts me. He was going through her purse. I walked in. I saw it. And I said, you can't be on here anymore.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know. For the last thing, I would have said Game of Thrones had it not been for that 8th season, but I can't, like, that it makes me sad, that last season. I can't, it's so bad that I can't, like, people are like, should I watch Game of Thrones? I'm like, no, you shouldn't. Because it's going to disappoint you.
Yeah, I stood up for it for a long time. I will say the whole thing is still worth watching. I do think they fucked up the ending dramatically. I wasn't as mad as most people with the fight at Winterfell. I wasn't as mad as most people for that.
You could have still saved it after that.
Could have still saved it after that. But I do agree with people where they're saying, you know what, you could have done a whole season with them dealing with the White Walkers.
Yeah.
Could have done a whole season on that.
Yeah.
And then dealt with the things afterwards.
They should have had to fight them a whole season. They should have lost and had to and then regroup and come back, and you could have got 2 seasons out of that.
Where I do put part of the blame on is I put part of the blame on the writer.
Oh yeah, well the thing is, I think HBO offered them 2 more seasons, and they said, "Oh, we can wrap it up in a half season," and they didn't want to hand it off to anybody else, and they went to make Star Wars money, and they got fired from that.
Yeah. Well, because they fucked up that last season bad.
Yeah,
they fucked it up bad.
There's plot threads that are just hanging there still. That like Game of Thrones was known for tightly weaving all these threads together, and then at the end they're just gonna leave everything hanging. There's no way that's how it was supposed to go.
Yeah, unless you're doing a break off show for each one of the main characters that are still alive, then you fucked it all. And plus,
which I would be down to watch Arya.
Arya
and
for
travels
sure.
the crazy lands.
I would do Jon Snow up in the winter. I'd watch that. Probably not as much as Arya. I think Arya is.
But there what's his name? Bran is the three-eyed raven. There has to be something more to that character than just he was the one that was supposed to be the king.
To me, that was the biggest fucked up part.
Spoilers. Well,
yeah, no, fuck spoilers. That's been out too long.
Yeah, who cares anyway? It
sucks.
But
Bran was to me the biggest fuck up. Like you built up this dude's prowess to something the whole time, having no legs. And we heard that they didn't. But you built up the prowess the whole time of something going on with this guy. I mean, one of the biggest moments in Game of Thrones history was Hodor. Hold the door. Yeah. Hold the door.
And look,
it all turns into nothing.
But that's the thing is, like, that's the kind of writing Game of Thrones had, where this little thing that happened all the time right in front of your eyes, it turns out it's this big thing, and it connects back around, and there was always that satisfaction with it, where the ending left none of that.
Honestly, my friend Justin, Justin Blanton.
Yeah.
When he was on here, he talked about how you created one of the best villains of all time in Cersei. And she got killed because a rock fell on her head, basically.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Well, and my problem more is with Jaime's part of it, where you spend this whole time, you start him out as the most hate, you just hate him. Yeah. And then you build him up to finally, we're rooting for this guy. And we get him where he wants, finally, we spend this whole show getting him to redeem himself, and and then right at the last moment, he's just, I just decided none of that was meant anything, and I'm going back.
I just go back to Cersei.
Yeah, he should have never left her side the whole show. Like,
yeah, he either should have never left her side the whole show, or he shouldn't have left at the end. Yeah. He should have just stuck with Brynn and what was her name, Brynn of Tarth or something like that.
Or if they're gonna have him ultimately jump back on her side, be it at the last moment when she's about to die, and he says, I'm dying with her then. You know? And
then I'm fighting to the death to protect her.
Yeah.
Not we're gonna go into the basement and the ceiling's gonna fall on us.
And that's like we didn't see one White Walker die in that whole skirmish. Not one White Walker was killed. I was like, you couldn't let Jaime kill a White Walker with his one hand and be like, I still got it. Saves Brynn. Like, there's just so many things you could have wrote in there that would have made it more enjoyable. And
again, another character you built up so much to do nothing, Jon Snow. You literally built him up to be the savior.
You have to come back to life because when you got to distract the dragon for a while. And what? Like, you have to be in this spot and you have to get pinned down.
We brought you back to life to do nothing.
You mean he just could have brought anybody back at any moment anyway? So it doesn't, like, what were the stakes really when you think about it? Like, what if Bran had gotten killed? Like, what if the Night King had gotten to Bran? What happens? What if Night King kills Bran and then Jon Snow stabs the Night King and then it's over? What happens? Because that was the whole goal, is he wants Bran. Why? Yeah. You never gave us why.
And you literally brought a guy back to life and gave us no reason for you bringing him back to life.
He's the savior, but not, he's more of a distraction.
He was a savior, but he did nothing. He did literally nothing.
Yeah. I understand wanting not to become predictable, but you can't spend all this time building things up and then give us none of it.
Because they were very unpredictable the whole time.
Yeah, but the end
your favorite character at the beginning is Ned Stark, and he dies. So it's very unpredictable.
And that's what hooked me is, man, this show has balls, dude. They just killed off the main character in the first season. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, to me, I almost stopped watching it. To me, there were two times where a character died where I almost stopped watching it, and it was Game of Thrones when they killed Ned Stark, and it was Sons of Anarchy when they killed Opie.
Yeah. Yeah, I never got into Sons of Anarchy.
You didn't watch Sons?
I missed the boat on that. Yeah.
It's actually again ended terribly.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Breaking Bad's one of the only ones that ever did it. Dexter was a great show. They failed at the end. You know?
I don't think Dexter failed as hard as some of these other ones we're talking about.
I can't stand the ending of that.
But it did fail hard, without a doubt. Did fail hard. All right, so what? You got one more?
Yeah, I got one more, and I don't know. I was struggling with that one. I don't know. I want to say Fight Club, but that, that stuck around forever.
Yeah, I'll even give you the whole Marvel cinematic masterpiece if you want to give it.
Yeah. A show or movie that you have to see. I don't know. I mean, everybody needs to see Star Wars.
And you know what? I'm going to give you that. We were kind of trying to stay away from it a little bit because I haven't seen the last movie, and Kyle has. Maybe I'll go see it with him because I know he'll go to the theater with me if I decide to see it. But yeah, I do think there are two film franchises that have been able to accomplish putting so many sequels together and people being interested. And it is the Marvel, which is way further but also way faster, and Star Wars.
Yeah.
And Star Wars did it over decades.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I don't list a Marvel movie is I could sit here and talk about all of those movies for so long.
Yeah.
And, I can't pick just one. I love those movies. That's my favorite thing going right now. But
that's why I was going to let you group it as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I would do that. Yeah. But I didn't want to pick that one. But everybody should go on that, that journey, man. And there's been nothing like it before. Like you're watching serial format in movies. Like, you've never seen anybody accomplish something like that before.
Never.
Everybody should go on that ride because it might never happen again.
You talking about Marvel?
Yeah.
That's when I have a buddy that's never seen any of the Marvel movies, and he says, because I'm really not that much of a superhero thing, and I said, regardless of whether you are, you have to recognize that this is the first time this has happened in cinema, in movies.
It's the fact that they got most of them most of them to stick around from movie to movie.
How many movies? How many years?
And then it's coherent. I mean, look at the X-Men movies. Like they don't make sense from movie to movie.
They're
like,
terrible.
Yeah, and these movies have there's tiny things, but man, for the most part, it all makes sense and it all builds off of each other.
To me,
so yeah, I will. That would be my fifth one.
The Marvel, the whole Marvel cinematic universe.
You should watch all that.
Yeah, with the Avengers plotline.
You don't got to get into every little show and side thing they do, but the main 22, 23 movies or whatever, you should watch that.
I think it's crazy if you don't at least watch them. I think it's insane. And like, I didn't like the first 2 Thor movies. I hated them, but I watched them as part of the cohesive unit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the genius there with that. You know what I mean? That's how they're printing money. Is like you have to watch, even if you're not interested and it's not good. It's like, yeah, but I need to see the next chapter in the story.
Yeah, I loved. I saw an article that said, "Hey Disney, you're not going to get me to watch these 2 TV shows, the new ones that are put on the platform, Vision and Scarlet Witch and." The Falcon and what's Bucky's?
Bucky and Falcon are together.
Yeah,
Winter Soldier and Falcon.
Yeah, Winter Soldier and Falcon. They're like, you're not going to get me to watch those just because I have to watch the movies. I'm like, what do you mean? Get to? I want to watch those.
Yeah. What do you mean? You mean that we're gonna get to see like 6 hours worth of them on side adventures?
Yeah,
amazing.
Like, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're so spoiled, man. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, like if I was 10, like if 10-year-old me could be thrown into the future of right now, I'd be like, oh my God, we have this.
Yeah,
we have all these things. I dreamed of this.
I literally get upset now, like. Lately, at pushing 40, I think about death a lot.
Yeah, thinking like that Marvel universe is gonna keep on ticking, and I'm gonna not. Man.
I literally
get upset too.
I think about death a lot in the forms of other things besides entertainment. But I'll be honest with you, one thing that really hits me hard I'm gonna miss out on so much movie masterpiece in the Marvel world.
Right. Yeah, like there's gonna be. I think about it all the time. There's gonna be a moment where I'm reading like. Avengers 18, they're gonna do the whatever saga, and I'm gonna be like, man, I just hope I can live another year.
Yeah, I think it to the point of like, if I die and heaven is a thing, do I get to watch these movies?
Yeah, because that's all I want. Just set me up in the TV and a big screen for the rest of eternity. Yeah. And then, I mean, it's sad because I have people that I've lost, friends that
I just lost my dad.
That were huge fans of it. My uncle was a huge fan, and he never got to finish Endgame. You know what I mean?
No, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's sad, man. And like another buddy that he was hyped for it, never got to see Avengers when it came out, and it's just like, man, that sucks. Like,
I feel like there's a chance I will be on my deathbed and be like, listen. The last Marvel movie,
whatever it is, I want to see the early cut.
Or like, listen, I'm going to last until this last Marvel movie gets released, and I'm gonna see it. Like, I have to see this next one.
Yeah, I can die the next day, or I'll be the guy that's like, write fucking George Lucas and tell him, I'm dying, and I just need to see that cut of Star Wars before. I know it's not finished, but let me see what happens.
It's like that Make-A-Wish Foundation. They're always like, oh, you'll be able to meet your favorite person. I don't need to meet fucking anybody. No, I need to know what's going to happen in this storyline.
Right. I'm hugely invested in it. Yeah.
Where do you think Marvel's going to go, man?
Oh, man. There's so many places. This is the thing is we're just now to the point where now I don't know where they're going to go. You know what I mean? Up until Endgame, I kind of had a vague idea of where this was all headed, and because I was familiar with the comics in the early parts. But now the gates are wide. They're throwing in the multiverse and stuff, and it seems like they're not going to stick with it linearly like the comic, because they've been kind of following the same trajectory. You know what I mean? The Captain America, all those early guys, Avengers, Spider-Man, Ultron. They pulled in a couple things that are from more recent history, like Civil War, and dabbled a bit.
They definitely intertwined.
But Infinity War was the first major event, major event. So,
I will say where they intertwined them, like Spider-Man being a kid in Civil War and all that, Peter Parker was a full-grown adult.
Yeah, but they used some stories, pieces of them to their advantage to tell their new story.
Yeah, and I think they did it very well.
Yeah, and so for the most part, it's followed the kind of almost the same timeline as the way the comics does. But now we're at a point where I think they're going to start really diverging. I don't know what they're going to do next, and I don't, the thing is we're going to lose characters. Where like in the comics we don't, like Iron Man does have to go away.
Yeah.
Where in the comics you keep him around through the whole thing. But we're going to eventually have to start losing characters, and who do they use to pick up the mantle, and where do they go?
Losing Iron Man was probably the toughest thing because literally, I mean,
it's like losing it's like somebody like you feel like Tony Stark.
Yeah, not just knowing him. That was literally the best transfer from character to character. Like, I will say, when you read the comics, Tony Stark was maybe a little bit more reserved than the character
he's not
that
as
Robert.
quippy and funny.
Right.
Robert's made it his own, and they have since turned him more like him. But
fuck, that was the best Tony Stark they ever could have even dreamed.
He
of.
had the look from the beginning. You know what I mean? Oh, look. When they announced him, I was like, that's a really good idea, and like his similar life path and all that. I was like, he kind of is like Tony Stark.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Tony Stark in the comics was a little bit more of a dickhead though. It wasn't quite. As fun.
Without a doubt, yeah.
But
he was part of the Illuminati in the comic series.
Yeah, he was a little more selfish in the comics and pig-headed. But I mean, they get some of that. They get a lot of that across in the movies. They just don't, make him as much of an asshole sometimes.
Yeah, well, and more comical actually is what I would say. In the movies, more comical without a doubt. I would say
more likable in the movies.
Yeah, from reading Civil War, he was definitely nowhere near as comical.
Yeah, he takes a hardline stance.
Yeah, sure. But I think for movies, I mean, they definitely went the right route. I mean, you created something so huge off of Iron Man.
I think Civil War is one of the more underappreciated ones. Like, that movie is so good, man, and there's so much in it. And like,
I think Civil War was great, but I do think that is where they truly drifted off of the actual comic storyline.
Yeah, but they kind of bring it back once they get to Endgame. But yeah, well, I liked how they used it as a catalyst to split them up, and that's what made them susceptible to Thanos, jumping them basically.
Well, and you also have to think they had to go off of it in a lot of different areas because they also couldn't incorporate X-Men. And X-Men were a big part of all of that.
They got to work with what they have. And what I loved about Civil War, though, was them making you understand both sides. Like, you agree with Cap and you agree with Tony.
Yes.
And like, you are rooting for both sides. Like, you never look at one person as the villain or one person as the guy who's wrong. You see both sides.
Yeah.
I think they do a really good job of that without, pushing one guy too far over the edge where you don't like him anymore.
Yeah. Probably the two things I hated the most in both universes, DC and Marvel, was they ruined the possibility of two incredible storylines. So I'll start with DC because you'll be able to jump in more on Marvel. But in DC, first of all, pretty much all their movies have been bad.
Yeah.
But
outside of Shazam, I really like Shazam.
I like Shazam. I think
Wonder Woman.
I think Wonder Woman is the best one.
Yeah.
I
think Shazam is the best and Wonder Woman is the second. But
yeah, I'm the opposite. Those are my two favorites.
Yeah.
But one of the best comic book storylines that I ever read was Death of Superman.
Yeah.
And that had to do with Doomsday.
Right.
And they made that they played that storyline in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
But
they give you 6 seconds of it.
They completely changed it, and it was like the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
It's one of the best storylines in comic book history, Marvel or DC. And not only did they make it a 5-minute thing, but they completely changed it.
Well, they ruin any drama of it too. They rob you of like the death of Superman and the impact of the death of Superman.
Right, the best superhero in DC history.
Yeah, and nobody even cared. Everybody, he's dead. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
You mean he's dead?
We didn't really know him that well anyway, so
right.
Whatever. Yeah,
we got Wonder Woman though.
Yeah, and then the one for Marvel was Planet Hulk, They made it like a brief sub-story of Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, but I mean, were they ever going to do the whole thing where Hulk comes back and, destroys the world? Like, they were never going to get it that far into it anyway.
But that was two different storylines, though. That was Planet Hulk.
Yeah, but it became World War Hulk.
It became World War Hulk.
That's what led into it. Yeah.
But you could have still done Planet Hulk.
Yeah.
World War Hulk was also great. But Planet Hulk, or whatever the fuck it was called, was, to me, one of the just best storylines ever. You got the Illuminati, who was Professor Xavier, which, again, one of the reasons they probably did it, because at the time they didn't own X-Men. Yeah. So Professor Xavier, Namor, Doctor Strange.
I would have liked to see that play out on screen, where they have to make that decision of, like, we got to send him off planet. Like,
right.
I would have liked to have seen that play out.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. And who knows, they may in the
But
future.
they have so many storylines, and when they use these little ones, like when they use some of them to tell smaller stories to get to bigger pieces, you can think, oh man, they kind of wasted that storyline. But they have so many, like, so you know what I mean, like. We were never going to get them all,
Right.
So it's like the fact that they throw in little pieces of them here and there is still cool to me. Like,
well, the thing is we're never going to get them all in our time frame.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to look at the mass future of Marvel, they would do it that way, because it's like, listen, these people are all going to die.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have to do this. So instead of remaking it, let them watch these movies and go back and watch these movies and still make money from these movies that were done back then, and then also the new ones. Yeah. Because, listen, you got storylines from, 1920s?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They got stories forever.
And how can they never... I'm so glad Disney has control of the X-Men now, because Fox never once made a good X-Men movie.
No, they're pretty bad. I mean, Logan
was the only good
one. I liked a lot, and it made me angry, because I'm like, this is how serious you could have taken these movies this whole time.
Right, because it's the only good one.
Yeah, and this is how good this could have been. Like, you didn't have to even go extravagant budget. You could have told deeply personal stories, and they've been really good.
And you wasted the best person possible for Wolverine. I don't know why, but he is perfect. What's his name?
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. Yeah. He is perfect for that role for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But he does it actually perfectly, but they ruined it.
Yeah. I'm not interested in him coming back. And I think he can be replaced. Whereas, like, Tony can't, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. can't. You can't. There's just nobody that's going to fill those shoes.
Well, because he actually looked like him.
Yeah.
Like, he looked like the comic book character. Yeah. He looked like him. You're never going to find another scenario where an actor looks that great.
Yeah.
And actually, I was going to bring up, me and you have been having an online argument about Venom, Carnage, Spider-Man. I went back and I actually, from going back and looking at clips of Natural Born Killers and I've started reading the whole Carnage series again.
Yeah.
I have that Marvel Unlimited, so I can read the comics. So I've started reading it all again. I do think that Woody Harrelson is better for the role than you think he is after reading it again. But what I read like 20 issues last night for some stupid reason. I stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning.
Lost.
But where I forget where I was going with that. So we were talking about
Natural Born Killers.
Oh, so I went back to watch some clips of Natural Born Killers. Robert Downey Jr. is why this came up. I went back to watch the interview in Natural Born Killers where Robert Downey Jr.'s character is interviewing Woody Harrelson's character. And that's one of the things that made me think he's actually going to play the perfect Carnage.
Yeah.
But what I did also notice at the same time is how good of a fucking actor Robert Downey Jr. is. He plays an Australian media person. And it's like, that's not even Robert Downey Jr. That's an Australian media person. He's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
He's a great actor.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
Yes. With him
really
and Val Kilmer.
Yeah. Some of Val Kilmer's lines in that crack me up so much. It's just like subtle stuff he says. This is funny as shit.
Yeah, but I actually do think, because it's a debate we've had a lot, I do think Woody Harrelson is going to be great at it. And after watching clips and reading You never said he wasn't going to be great.
No, yeah.
You said you thought other people would have been better.
Yeah, I think there's more natural fits, just like with the way that, like, people used to always say Jim Carrey, and I wouldn't have picked Jim Carrey, but I think that's more in line with what you're looking for. Like, when I look at Woody Harrelson, I see Woody Harrelson too much. You know what I mean? And Jim Carrey would have been the same thing, but I think Jim Carrey is still a little more closer to the idea of what you want with, like, Cletus Cassidy. But, I don't think Woody will be bad. I think he can ham it up and do all, I think he'll be fine.
Well, and our big argument was with mannerisms, and our argument went into how much can you
get across
mannerisms. Now, the last argument, I didn't reply to it, but the last argument you had was like Harley Quinn twirling her hair and stuff like that. Yeah, those little simple things I think you can
little ticks
across.
that people have.
Stuff. Little ticks. But I think the thing I brought up was Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, the way he gets from place to place,
moves. I don't think you can get that. The little twirls, things like that. I do agree with you. I think you can.
Yeah, I think it's just more of what we're focusing on about mannerisms.
Yeah,
that we disagreed.
What again, I think it's so funny how much me and you can disagree on some things, but if you look at generalities, we are on the same page with most things.
Yeah, that's the thing. People would think we're arguing, but it's like, really, we think about the same thing anyway, but we're arguing on the minor details. Like, yeah, because I don't not think Woody Harrelson will do well. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're just, I can get closer.
Right.
But that thing intrigues me. What are they doing there? You know what I mean? Are they going to pull Spider-Man? Because Morbius, if you've seen that preview, it looks like they're pulling Spider-Man in, and it looks like Vulture pops up at the end, and But I worry that Sony.
I tried to look that up because he's not even on the IMDb. Michael Keaton, who to me is one of the best actors.
But he's
I
in
love
the
Michael
trailer.
Keaton. But he's in the trailer. But he's not on the IMDb. And are they going to pull out together? Because one of the biggest things I would like to see, Sinister Six.
Yeah, well, that's the prevailing theory is that's what he's there to. Because Scorpion's already in jail with him. If that's him,
right? And I would like to see the original Sinister Six. I know there's been many variations of all those things, but I would like to see the original Sinister Six.
What in the old '90s Spider-Man cartoon they called him? Was there Sinister Six and the Insidious Six is what they called him in the cartoon. Yeah, because Kingpin puts them together in the cartoon. There's a lot of those storylines that the cartoon did differently in the '90s that I think actually work out better. They should do them that way in the movie.
Yeah, I do have to say this because I've heard you talk about it multiple times, or not heard, I should say read. But I do think things are going more towards shows than they are movies.
Yeah, well, I just think, especially because of the production value you can get out of shows now, you can tell pretty much whatever story you want, and it doesn't limit them as much. You have more opportunity to tell a story within 6 hours versus 2 hours. It lends itself better to storytelling.
And it lends it especially better to comics, I would say. Yeah. Because to me, each comic is 1 hour show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in
every monthly issue could be turned into a half hour to an hour long show.
Right. And
almost.
I think comics were actually almost built. Their writing style was almost built for movies. Yeah. I think it's why sometimes I give directors and other things such a hard time when they don't follow the storyline exactly.
Yeah, it's right there. Just do it.
It's right there. It's literally like the comic book was built for it.
Yeah.
But like you said, they're probably trying to fit it into these people's like lifespan.
Yeah.
But I think they should stop focusing on that. As much as I'll be sad because I won't see it all.
Yeah.
I think people will go back and watch the previous ones from before their time frame, and then Star Wars is the perfect example. Yeah. Everybody has watched every fucking Star Wars, except for the people that are like, oh no, I just don't watch things from the past. Actually, there was somebody I think on your feed, they were talking about Disney Plus, and I said that one of the things I loved about Disney Plus was I got to watch a lot of the movies from when I was a kid, and they were like, I don't know I'm not trying to sound like an asshole, but I don't want to watch the things from when I was a kid. I'm like, why the fuck not? Why the fuck wouldn't you want to watch?
I know that guy. He's just the way he is.
But why wouldn't you want to watch some of the things you loved from when you were a kid and rewatch them?
Yeah.
I don't understand that thought process. Like I watched Iron Will the other day.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah, I could get into. There's just a nostalgia factor to a lot of that stuff, man. Like even if it's not good, you'll still enjoy it for some reason because you loved it when you were little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, have you watched that new Messiah show on Netflix?
No, I recommended it to somebody without even watching it though, because I was like, "This looks pretty dope. Check it out." And he watched it and he was like, "Dude, it was really good." I was like, "Yeah, I haven't even seen it." But he was like, "Well, it was good."
Dude, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it definitely piqued my interest. It looks like it seemed like from the preview there was question as to whether he was legitimately who he says he is. Right.
No, that's the big thing is that it's like, is he they play it perfectly because if the Messiah, in air quotes, came back today.
Yeah, we wouldn't believe him.
Nobody's going to fucking believe him. So the CIA, the FBI, everybody's investigating. People are like, oh, it's got a homeland feel. Like, it doesn't really have a homeland feel except for the fact that
there's a lot of deserts and stuff. Middle Eastern stuff.
There's a Middle Eastern aspect, possible terrorism, and there's the CIA and FBI involved. That's the similarities.
A show I've been thinking about, or I don't know, it's piqued my interest. I want to check it out. Is that The Expanse? Dude, I hear it's good, and the plot seems interesting to me.
I heard the same thing like you. I kept hearing great things about it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. I finally did.
Really good.
Blew through it. And you know who I was surprised was in it? Because when you look at like everything, like when you see like the for lack of a better term, like the cover boxes and stuff like that, you would never know they were in it. Thomas Jane is in it.
Yeah, he's good. I like
it. It's probably the best space show I've ever seen.
Yeah. I heard it's really well thought out.
It's better than Star Trek. They really try to. The science of it.
Yeah, that's what I heard, the science aspect. Like, it makes sense. Like, they would do this. Like,
they do the best they can to really lock in the science of it. Like, obviously, we don't know all the science of space, but they literally do the best they can on the science. It's the best space show I've ever seen. I've actually been highly recommending it to people like crazy because I blew through 4 seasons. I blew through 4 seasons of it, and I'm trying, and now I'm just going crazy for the 5th season.
Well, it's on Amazon now, right? It was Sci-Fi, and then it got canceled.
It was on Sci-Fi. It got canceled. Amazon picked it up.
Yeah.
I think they did 1 season under Amazon.
Lord Bezos picked it up. Right?
Yeah, I don't care. Honestly, do you have Amazon?
Yep. I got everything.
Their shows, their original content.
Yeah, they have some good original shows.
That Jack Ryan show,
The Boys,
incredible. The Boys, incredible. Have you watched The Marvelous Miss Maisel yet?
No, I hear it's really good. I would definitely dig that too.
You would love it. You like stand-up comedians. You like.
There was a show. It was short-lived on Showtime called "I'm Dying Up Here." It was only 2 seasons.
Yeah,
it got
loved
canceled.
it.
It was great. Yeah,
loved it. I couldn't believe it got canceled.
I was pissed.
Oh man, I was infuriated.
Yeah.
But I heard it from the comedian aspect, like the actual comedians of the world. What they didn't like was that it predominantly showed the dark side.
Yeah.
And they said that there was a lot of fun to because it's very much based off of what's the
Goldie, the Comedy Store.
The Comedy Store. Yeah. It was very much based off of that, and they said there was a lot of just great times in there too. It wasn't all just negative, but I don't give a fuck. It was awesome. I couldn't believe it got canceled, and I felt really bad for what's his name, Cheeto Santino.
Is he on the show?
Yeah, he's a stand-up comedian, red hair.
Is he like the main guy on the show?
The main red hair guy for sure. Yeah, the guy that
he's on Rogan sometimes, right?
Yeah, he's on Rogan all the time. He travels with Rogan on the road. Okay. Yeah, I felt really bad for him. Let's see this.
Diaz was in the show sometimes, right? Joey
Diaz. I think he did an episode or 2.
Yeah.
But
It's Benny time. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
That was funny, man.
But Santino was big time on it, and he's really been trying to break into acting and stuff like that, and he did an amazing job in that movie.
Yeah, he was good.
He was one of the guys that, beat the shit out of the guy that was actually stealing the jokes. He
Yeah.
actually hated the guy that, the character, he beat the shit out of a guy.
So you really let him have it?
Well, no, he hated the guy that he stole the jokes from. So he didn't even like the guy that he stole the jokes from. But since the guy stole the jokes, he still beat the shit out of him because you don't steal a comedian's jokes.
Yeah.
I've been a little out of it because I'm trying to pull up. I want to finish this podcast because me and Kyle are talking about possibly doing an MMA podcast once a month. So I just want to pull up like the recent fights and kind of give some of our thoughts real quickly because this has already been pretty long. So I just kind of want to give some of it. We already talked about McGregor Cowboy. Not a lot there. So then after that, fight night, Curtis Blades, Dos Santos.
I mean, you hope Dos Santos day is done. You hope Blades can turn into somebody,
Exactly. Because
Because he's got a ceiling, a higher ceiling, whereas Dos Santos, we know what he's got.
It's just unfortunate because Blades is so good at the ground, but he doesn't seem to have any of the stand-up. Dos Santos, I was hyped for when he fought in Ngannou.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if he can beat Ngannou, I'm back on the train.
Yeah.
But he didn't even put up a showing.
Yeah. Well, the first time Kane knocked or Dos Santos knocked Kane out, that was the height of his. Mm-hmm. And I was pumped, man. I was running. I was jumped off the couch, screaming. Yeah. But Kane worked him twice after that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's never been the same.
Yeah, never. Then you got Jones Reyes.
Reyes, man. What has he done? It shocks the world. You can't pick anybody but Jones.
Yeah, you can't pick anybody but Jones. The only person I know people like to talk about Gustafsson, but the best fight I ever saw Jones have, somebody against Jones. The best fight I ever saw somebody have against Jones was what's his name? Thiago. Santos. And he did it with 2 blown out knees, basically.
Yeah, well, and before he even got that fight, I was like, man, that guy's the scariest challenger to Jones out there. Right
Completely
now.
agree.
He's an animal. And then, he completely exceeded my expectations.
Completely exceeded.
And to the point where you have to wonder if he doesn't do that to his legs, does he totally dominate that fight?
Because it happened in the second round.
Yeah. Does he just dominate that fight without that? And
right.
It's like,
he still threw kicks after that.
It's a shame because he's out, and he should get an immediate rematch.
As soon as he is healthy, he should get an immediate rematch. To me, he had more of a threat against Jones than Gustafsson did. Don't get me wrong, Gustafsson was close, but the only reason we thought it was close is because nobody had come remarkably close, or at all close to Jones before Gustafsson's
and that was close to
fight.
the technical aspect. It wasn't,
right.
Dos Santos, he was putting him in danger.
He was putting him in danger.
Yeah.
And he had a completely bum leg.
Yeah.
Everything you could tear in your knee was gone after the fight.
And
everything you could tear.
He was using it as a club.
Yeah, and he was still throwing it.
I can't feel it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with it.
Then you got Anderson, Blachowicz, and Blachowicz surprised me. Who did he fight that he surprised me in? Who was that? He ended up knocking him out. Who was it?
Didn't he just fight not too long ago?
Mm-hmm.
Was it? No, that was a Russian guy that fought old Calvin Klein model. What's his name?
No, that's who it was. Yeah, it was him and Luke Rockhold.
Yeah,
it was him and Luke Rockhold.
Well, I called that, and I didn't even know much about Blachowicz. I was just like, Luke Rockhold's gonna get crushed at light heavyweight.
Yeah, well, and honestly,
especially against a guy who's worked his way into the top 5 or whatever.
And honestly, I love. He's a commentator now. He used to fight Brendan Schaub. I love his podcast and things like that because I love how silly it is. I love that he doesn't try to get too technical. He's just like, well, this is how I feel about things. So I love that aspect of it. But he was all about Luke Rockhold in that fight, and and I did not agree with him at all. I was like, Luke Rockhold does not belong at light heavyweight. He barely belongs at middleweight.
No, and like Rockhold, he just seems so full of himself, and you love watching him get knocked out.
Yeah, he's a bottle.
Yeah,
that's what he
he
is.
is.
He's a bottle. I'm gonna skip over the next one, Felder. I'm gonna skip over that one. Okay, so we got what's her name? The Chinese girl, Zhuang or something like that, versus...
To be determined is her name.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Dude, UFC's website is absolutely the worst website on the internet.
Why would that not be filled out?
Why would that not be filled out? They literally, the MMA websites like MMA Junkie and MMA Fighting will have the cards updated before the UFC website does.
Yeah, almost instantly. Usually when the news breaks, I'll go over those things and it's already there.
But if you go to UFC, it's like, at least we have the faces here, because normally it'll just be 2 no faces, question marks.
Player 1.
But I actually, I'm on the Joanna champion.
I love Joanna.
I love her, man. I hope she wins. I'm not saying she's going to, but I really hope she does.
I mean, I don't think there's any reason to think she's out of it. Like
I don't.
She's had the fights she's lost are against some of the best fighters in the world.
Right.
What weight is that? 130?
It's her normal weight class.
125.
I can't remember what it is, but it's her normal weight class.
That's 115.
Yeah. This is what I definitely wanted to talk about. Ngannou versus, I don't even know, Rosentrek.
Oh, he's got some incredible knockouts. I mean, that's somebody's getting knocked out.
He's split open.
Yeah, he's got some incredible knockouts.
He split open. The best part about this is it's 2 people that fucked up. What's his name? Alistar Overeem.
Yeah. Was that the last fight where he got split over him?
Yeah.
That was Rosentrek.
That was Rosentrek.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was...
That was in the last 3 seconds of the fight.
Yeah, Ngannou
did it in the first minute. No, he was not winning. He was losing the fight, for sure. But he busted him open. Yeah. I do think this will be better. Like, a lot of people might think of this as like the Derek Lewis versus Ngannou fight, which was very boring.
No.
This is not going to be the same thing.
Yeah, this will be
fireworks
for sure.
But I think Ngannou ends up being the heavyweight champion before the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Stipe. Yeah, I think if he gets another crack at Stipe, there was a lot working against him. He seemed nervous. The moment seemed too big for him.
He had how many UFC fights?
Not many, and he was really full of himself because he was walking through everybody, and I think he learned his lesson. And he's scary now, man.
And then the Derek Lewis fight was immediately afterwards, and then he was being too timid, worried about takedowns, because that's what Stipe did.
Worried about getting knocked out by a guy who could put you out.
And worried about takedowns because that's what he did. Because in the UFC, the heavyweight is not about takedowns.
No,
it's very rare. Honestly, if it was about takedowns, then Cormier would have taken down Stipe and beat him to a pummel.
Yeah,
I like Cormier, and I think he was too hyped on knocking Stipe out. I mean, literally, Stipe hit him with, the same body shot 10 times in a row?
Yeah, what was that? Like, why did he let that happen?
Take him down. His corner was even yelling, take him down.
Yeah,
you were one of the best wrestlers in MMA. Take him down.
I don't... It leaves it open for a third one, Because it was like, why did that go down that way?
It was so weird.
Yeah.
He literally just kept hitting him with the exact same body shot.
Like, why? Like,
stop letting him hit you with that.
Yeah, it was a weird one.
It was a really weird thing.
Cormier. I like Jones, and I think Jones is the most talented fighter in the world. I think Cormier.
I hate Jones.
Cormier is probably the best, the fighter of the decade.
Cormier.
Despite the fact that he can't get past Jones and stuff, but what he's accomplished is no small feat. You know what I mean? He's one of the best ever.
Came out of nowhere. For those that don't know, Daniel Cormier, how he made his name was Strikeforce at the time had the best heavyweights in the world. So they decided to throw a heavyweight tournament. And they had all the best heavyweights in the world in that tournament,
and a guy named Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, I would say bar 2 because they didn't have Velasquez and they didn't have Dos Santos. Yeah. Other than that, they had the best heavyweights in the world. Mm-hmm. And Daniel Cormier took over because I think Alistair Overeem had to bail out because of an injury. Yeah. So he took over for that, and he won the whole goddamn thing. Yeah. And won it decisively.
Yeah, dominated everybody. Ragdolled Barnett. Yeah.
Ragdolled Barnett, knocked Bigfoot Silva just repeatedly punched him in the face and knocked him to the ground, and then wouldn't get on the ground with him because he was like, he's good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. I'm not going down there. Get back up. I'm going to knock you down again.
Never lost a fight at heavyweight till Stipe, and never lost at light heavyweight aside from Jones.
Yeah.
He's the second best in the world ever at 2 weight classes.
Yeah. I literally...
And maybe not, maybe not at heavyweight. He might be the best heavyweight still.
I still think he might be the best heavyweight because I think bad game plan, and actually, game plan is not the right term because I think they wanted him to take him down. I think bad execution is what caused him to lose that fight. I think
stubbornness, because he knocked him out the first time. Maybe he's thinking, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
As crazy as it sounds, as much as I hate Jones, I think John Jones is the best MMA fighter of all time. Yeah. I hate him. I think he's the best MMA fighter of all time.
Yeah, he's on 3rd generation of being dominant.
Yeah, I think the number 2, if you really look at it, and the only person that he truly loses to when he's on top of his game is Bones, because I think he should have beat Stipe. I think Daniel Cormier, you almost have to say, is the number 2 best fighter of all time.
Well, all time, you might want to snug GSP in there.
GSP, Demetrius Johnson. There's a lot of people.
I just see Demetrius. It's hard. I mean, he's great, but the competition isn't quite. The competition that GSP had, the competition that Jones had. Like, those are all elite names that they fought throughout their whole career.
Right.
And then for GSP to come back and, like, kind of show, hey, man, I still got it, like when beating Bisping at a different weight class,
But let's be honest, who didn't expect somebody to beat Bisping?
Yeah, but still, like, just for him to be able to
that
come
long
back
of a
after
layoff.
that time at a different weight class and be able to still do that, like...
Long layoff, upper weight class. I do completely agree. I think GSP is one of the best of all time.
I still think GSP could maul Khabib.
I think that's questionable, just because I do think he has the wrestling pedigree,
got the size.
which is weird because he didn't wrestle until he got to MMA, but he's an incredible wrestler.
And if he couldn't wrestle him, he could probably keep him at bay by just sniping him in the face with jabs.
I don't think he ever beats him at 155 because I don't think he gets there. Yeah. But I think if they did a catch weight at 160, 165 catch weight, I think he does beat Khabib. He's got way better striking. Yeah. He's got way better striking. He's got amazing stand up. I actually don't.
But DC is in there in the top 2, 3. It's hard, you start. But Jones, I think Jones is clear and away, head and shoulders.
Yeah, I actually have to ask you, so I'll say maybe bar Corbet, I would say my top fighters all time: Jones, Silva, GSP. I don't even put Fedor on there because I don't think Fedor ever fought the best competition.
No, but no, and I mean there, the countless freak fights down the list with Fedor, but
yeah.
But I mean, at the time, at heavyweight, nobody had a record like that. No matter who they fought, they also all fought a bunch of nobodies too. Even the names, they still never had a record like his.
Yeah, I just don't think Fedor belongs in the top 5 all time.
Probably not. No. But he's probably a top 10. I mean, it's hard. He gets it. It's kind of like a Gracie thing where he's like out of respect and because of what he was for the sport at the time.
Yeah,
he's one of the greatest, like legacy wise. But
Dan Henderson, knocked you the fuck out.
Yeah, I love Dan Henderson.
I love Dan Henderson. But if you're the best heavyweight of all time, Dan Henderson should not have been able to do that to you.
No, especially because it wasn't like it was prime Dan Henderson either.
Not even close.
No.
Yeah, and you can say, not prime him, but they were both not in their prime.
No.
One is wildly undersized against you.
Right.
I don't care about the...
And then Matt Mitrione slept... Well, they slept each other at the same time. But Fedor, this is well beyond his prime.
Yeah. All right, so there we go. Khabib, Ferguson... I'm gonna take Khabib.
I take Ferguson just because I think it's such a toss up, and like I would like to see it.
I would love to see it.
I would love to see Ferguson as champion just because of the press conferences and how he's so weird.
I will say I want Ferguson to win.
Yeah,
I do. I think Khabib still does.
I think it's wildly like unpredictable.
Well, I think you have to say that with any Ferguson fight because
Yeah,
Ferguson is probably the most
I
unpredictable.
do think
fighter
Pettis
of all
was
time.
beating him.
Yeah.
I think he was winning that fight until he broke his hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think Ferguson just has all the tools to surprise Khabib, and like Khabib always wears everybody down, and I don't think he wears Ferguson down.
I don't think he wears Ferguson down,
And
and
I
I do think Ferguson does damage from the bottom.
Yeah, he can do that, and like what happens when Khabib can't suck the life out of you? You know what I mean? Like what happens when he has to fight in 5 rounds without you being just dog tired? You know?
Right.
Like I think I don't think it's clear cut in any way.
Yeah. So let's start. If we want to try to do an MMA show once a month, let's start a kind of like a lot of ESPN analysts do, but it's obviously for more popular sports, air quotes, where they predict the winners and who wins at the end of the year. So let's start ours with Khabib Ferguson.
Okay.
All right, that'll be the first fight of the year that we
And
say.
we're split on that one. So.
And we're split. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be the first one. So I'm saying Khabib, you say Ferguson.
Yeah.
I will say again, I hope Ferguson wins. Yeah. I do hope Ferguson wins. I do think he has the tools to do it. I just think Khabib is a weird guy that wrestles bears.
Do I think it's smart to pick against Khabib? No, but
right. But you're gonna.
I'd like to be right about that one.
Yeah, I would like you. What's crazy is I'm picking Khabib, and I'd like you to be right about that one. I do actually, even though I don't think this is crazy, I do want to talk about the undercard fight on there. It's nothing crazy, but it's Ronaldo Souza versus Uriah Hall. I think Uriah Hall is the most waste of talent
potential
that there has ever been in MMA.
Yeah, he's a guy that's like, it's there, man. Like he could be a superstar, but what's happening?
To me, he should have been Anderson Silva with power.
Yeah. I thought he was going to take that step, a year or so ago, and it just maybe 2 years ago.
I thought he was going to be the most impressive fighter at middleweight ever when I saw him on Ultimate Fighter. I really did. When he roundhouse kicked that dude,
that was the one that he was done. Yeah,
he was snoring with his eyes open.
Yeah, everybody was scared. The people were scared.
Yeah, everybody was, and I just thought that was going to be. I thought he was going to be the next big thing.
Souza, I mean, I think he hit his prime for like a very short window where he might have been the best in the world for like 6 months.
I really do think I think that too, because his striking was pretty good and his jiu-jitsu is out of control, and now he doesn't even try to use his jiu-jitsu.
It was like it seemed like the UFC let him go, I think, like right at the time when it went away. Like he was, I think at that moment though, he could have beat anybody. Like right before that,
I think he could have too. And you know what? We just got the announcement of the Yoel Romero Adesanya fight.
Yeah.
Who do you think wins that?
Adesanya, just because he's come up short so many times at that top level.
I think I would say if he makes weight, I think Yoel Romero wins that fight. The reason being is, even though Adesanya,
he leaves himself open for a lot.
Even though Adesanya beat what's his name? I was gonna say Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker. He gave him he's the one reason for the eye.
What's his name?
Robert Whitaker.
Robert Whitaker.
Yeah.
You are hilarious. That's the reason for the eye. Even though he beat him, that was actually a very sloppy fight.
Yeah, he like you said, he leaves himself open a lot. And against Gastelum, you know, I mean, he was getting. There was a moment in the Gastelum fight too where Gastelum had it won. Gastelum had him up against the wall, was piecing him up, and decided to put his head into his waist and like pin him against the cage. If he would have just kept coming and kept firing fists, I think he had the fight won. Thinking that he lost the fight, but he gave him just enough time to recoup.
And I think Adesanya actually looked better in the Gastelum fight than he did in the Whitaker fight because, honestly, if you go back and watch that Whitaker fight, Adesanya was throwing a lot of his punches and stuff leaned way back.
Yeah, well, I think
he looked weird
I think
the whole fight.
Whitaker kept doing Whitaker lost the fight more than maybe Adesanya won because he kept trying to do the same thing where he was trying to reach up and hit him and he wasn't getting in. It wasn't working, and he just kept going for it, and he'd get pieced on the way out every time. And
but Adesanya looked so weird while he was counter striking. He literally his feet were staying right in the engagement, but he was leaned way far back. I keep trying to lean back, but I'm afraid to not be on the mic. But he was leaned way far back and throwing punches while leaned back,
off his back foot,
like this. And it was the weirdest looking fight. It almost looked like Adesanya didn't know how to fight. Is how weird it looked because he didn't take a step back. He didn't step back and then strike. He just leaned back and then was catching him.
Adesanya is beatable. That's the thing. People want to say, "Oh, he's the next Silva. He's the next," but he's nowhere near as clean.
Nowhere near.
He's got some of them flashy. He throws those flashy kicks and punches, but it's not as he doesn't use them as smartly. I would say, he doesn't utilize them as well, or leaves them does them too often and leaves himself open for strikes and stuff.
Yeah,
whereas Silva was much more technical, I think.
Yeah, I hate that comparison because I will say Anderson Silva is my favorite fighter of all time.
Yeah,
because I think what he did, especially at the time when striking was still a big part, but I mean, he just blew the striking out of the water when he came in. It was unbelievable what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a movie.
It looked like a movie.
Yeah.
It looked like a video game.
Which I don't know if that'll ever be able to happen again because it's will the skill gap ever be so far that a guy can come in and throw those kicks and cleanly, make
kicks and punches.
He
literally could just. Even when people were throwing punches at him and they thought they connected, he was actually moving enough out of the way.
Yeah, rolling with them.
He was rolling with them. And I truly think nobody will ever be as good at the striking game in MMA as he was.
They'll never make it look as good. Yeah.
Definitely never make it look as good. Yeah. But I don't think they ever really will. Because think of the Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin.
Yeah,
that was the craziest thing.
That was, one of the things that made me fall in love with MMA. Period was that fight. I was rooting for Forrest. I was just like the guy. I like his personality Forrest. And shit. And I'm rooting for him, and yeah, man,
he made him look silly to the point where Forrest Griffin literally ran out of the wing. He was not going to do a press conference.
No, it didn't look good.
He
was in the Matrix. He literally was like whoosh whoosh.
People are like, "Oh, well, he's boring for a round or two." Yeah, because he's figuring out how you move.
Yeah, he's studying you.
He's like, how do you move? Yeah. Let me figure out how you move, and then, now I'm going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before or since.
No.
I really don't.
Yeah, Conor does it to a sense, too. You see people that figure people out. You could see Silva watching somebody and figuring them out. You knew when he you knew when he had him. You knew, he'd start bouncing left or right, and you're like, oh, he's got his timing. He's about to he's about to come in on him. Watch.
And the only thing that stopped him from continuing to do that was age, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was it. Age. That was it. He got old. That's it. I do want to talk because on this one card, we talked briefly about it, but Ngannou and Rosenstruck.
Garbrandt. Speaking of wasted potential.
Wow, my God. That's exactly what I wanted to say. When Garbrandt beat Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
And I was like, he is maybe the best fighter ever.
Yeah.
Because he made it look silly.
Yeah, he made him look. Yeah, and like, look what Dillashaw does to Cruz, and you know,
Right.
Why can't go Cody? But Cody, it doesn't even seem like the fights he's lost. Like he literally just gets blind rage and goes after him and gets clipped.
He stops fighting smart.
He's done it like 4 times.
I don't understand.
Why?
Like the first time it happened and he got his clock clinged, I was like, okay, he got too over aggressive. And then it's like, oh, you did it again. Oh, you did it again.
Yeah.
Oh, you did it again.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
It's like he gets angry and turns into a schoolyard kid and just rushes with his head down swinging. Like, I don't get it.
When he beat Dominic Cruz, everybody was saying, oh, yeah, Cody Garbrandt has power. That's why he's been doing so good. And I said, you guys don't realize how fast he is. He's so fast.
Yeah, unbelievable speed. Man.
Unbelievable speed. And I feel like what he started doing was he just started throwing those wide, trying to just power punch people. He's like, oh yeah, now I'm known as a power puncher. Now that I beat Dominic Cruz, I can beat anybody. Yeah. So I'll just throw these wild, crazy hooks. Like, dude, you used to be so fast, so clean.
What happened to you slipping and ducking? Where did that go? You did it against Cruz, man. Like,
right? What?
You did it against the guy who does it, who is the best at it, and you made him look sloppy. Like,
you made him look silly.
Yeah.
You made him look silly. You literally were stepping back and doing little dance moves.
Yeah.
I don't understand what happened to him. I'm very sad about what happened to him because I was on the Cody Garbrandt train.
Well, I'm not sad. I was because like I like Cruz a lot, and I was kind of upset at how bad he made him look, and like I was kind of mad. It made me a little angry to watch him like dance like that because I'm like, man, nobody deserves to be able to do that to Cruz. Like, and Cruz, like you should get clipped. Like, yeah. And you know the fact that he went downhill afterwards, I kind of chuckled.
Well, Ed, you were always a little upset about something that nobody knows for sure, but may or may not have happened.
Yeah, Cody, I mean, the guys from around here, I heard bad things. You know,
yeah, you heard bad things, possibly woman beater.
Yeah,
things
stuff like that, which I can't really confirm or deny. But you know, the guy never came across as the swellest guy anyway. So
yeah.
And after him doing those antics and stuff, I'm like, I don't think I like the guy.
Yeah. And then we'll go. I'll go to this UFC fight night because this guy had all the hype behind him in the world, and I never really understood why. Johnny Walker. What do you think of Johnny Walker?
I mean, I understood why, but the guys he was doing it to weren't nothing big, you know.
Okay, I'll say that. I guess I could understand why because he was doing some flashy things.
Yeah.
But when you do them against nobodies, to me, I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care until you do it against top level competition.
Well, and he should have realized that he was at that level now, and it was time to take it very seriously.
Yeah, and I think Corey Anderson is a little bit underrated, including by me before that fight. I think Corey Anderson has actually kind of a Khabib wrestling feel with a little bit better striking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Walker just has huge potential, you know. I think he got a little ahead of himself. You know, we'll see with him.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
he
I
definitely
think
still has all the potential.
That better have humbled him, though. You know, he better realize that he can't do those things because he was goofing around at the beginning of that fight, right?
Yeah. He was trying to be the Anderson Silva of light heavyweight.
Yeah.
And then we got Robert Whittaker against this is UFC 248. Robert Whittaker versus Jared. I don't know how to say his last name. Cannonier. Jared Cannonier seems
fought somebody, right?
Well, he was always very well known for his kickboxing. Apparently, has a lot of power. I guess we'll see what happens here. I don't know. I do think Robert Whittaker is a champion. I do think he's a beast. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he probably wins that fight.
So let's go. Let me move up here. Benavidez. Anytime I see Benavidez and it's not Mighty Mouse, I say Benavidez.
Yeah.
Let's go to the top. So we're gonna start. We're gonna try to do a monthly MMA podcast. So we're gonna go from the top.
We're saying
McGregor versus Cowboy. We're both taking McGregor there, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm not worried about this fight. I don't care at all about that fight. So let's move down. So we're both on the same page there. Blades versus Dos Santos. I think we both say Blades.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on the same page there. No, actually,
That's a good fight.
Yeah, I'll say. Who do you think wins this, Dos Anjos or Michael Chiesa?
I know Chiesa better win it. I think Dos Anjos though. It seems like he's on the downslip. That's my in Dos Anjos. If he were in his prime, Dos Anjos.
Yes, but I think Chiesa.
I think it's apparent that he's on the downslip, and Chiesa did look good in his last fight, but I don't think he's the champion, and I don't even think he's really top 5.
I don't think Chiesa's going to end up ever being. I think he's always going to be like a Matt Brown.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, Matt Brown. He's going to beat some people you don't expect him to, but he's never going to be in that top 5.
At best, he's Kenny Florian.
Yeah. I just don't think he's ever going to be in the top 5. I do love Chiesa. I love that he won the Ultimate Fighter, even though his dad died during the Ultimate Fighter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's crazy. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He knew his dad was sick, but he had to take the chance, which, agreed, right? You got to take the chance. You got to. It sucks.
Yeah.
But if you don't take that chance, what happens? And he ended up winning the Ultimate Fighter even though his dad died.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's incredible. I love Chiesa as a person. I think he beats Dos Anjos. I don't think he's probably ever going to win a belt.
No.
Okay, we don't care about anything there. Then we got Jones, Reyes. Let's see who's on the undercard there. Okay, Shevchenko.
I think Shevchenko is the most talented female fighter in the world. I think Nunes is the greatest female fighter in the world, but I think if you put Shevchenko in Nunes' body, she'd beat men.
Yeah, I agree. I think she's definitely the most talented.
She's so fast.
I would love to actually see now at this point in their careers her versus Amanda Nunes again.
Well, they just did it not long ago.
I know it wasn't that long ago.
And I mean, it was fairly close, but Nunes won.
Right.
They fought 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they even fought in kickboxing.
And Shevchenko, did she win one of those, the first one?
She won the first one.
Yeah. I don't think Shevchenko, like when Edgar fought Aldo, I felt like Edgar was like an inch away from being able to fuck Aldo up.
Yeah.
But like he just was too short, where, I don't think Shevchenko's got the length to beat Nunes.
Right.
But I think she has all the skill in the. I think she's the most skilled fighter in the world.
I would like to see that fight now, though. Yeah. I really would. And I do. You talked about Edgar. I gotta say, Edgar's one of my favorite fighters of all time. But I think it's time to hang it up.
Yeah. Well, Zombie's a bad motherfucker, dude.
Zombie's a bad motherfucker, and I can't wait for him to fight for a belt.
Him.
He was the first guy we ever saw do a twister in a major event.
Who was that? Was against
Garcia.
Garcia,
yeah. Because their first fight was like the biggest slugfest you ever saw in WEC.
Yeah,
it's one of the fights that gets people into MMA.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, and the second one was the twister.
Yeah, the second one was a twister. All right, well, I think we might have covered that. Well, we do have Corey Anderson versus Blachowicz. I do think Corey Anderson wins this. I think Corey Anderson is a better fighter than a lot of people realize. He also has the weirdest nipples of all time in MMA fighters.
I don't think Blachowicz beating Luke Rockhold says anything.
I don't think it says anything at all. Actually, after this, we got Diego Sanchez versus some guy I've never really heard of.
Michael Pereira.
Diego Sanchez was a guy that did win the Ultimate Fighter, I think.
I'm scared when I watch him fight. Like
he is the least well-rounded popular fighter of all time.
Yeah.
He
just takes beatings.
He just takes beatings. That's all he does. He has exciting fights because he can take a lot of punches.
He won his last 2 fights, hasn't he?
Did he? Let's look at that. I honestly
he beat Mickey Gall.
Well, okay,
but I thought Mickey Gall was up and coming. You know, he beat Mickey Gall had a smart path there. He beat CM Punk, got his name out there.
Great,
and then he called out Sage Northcutt, which is kind of a guy similar trajectory, but was a little more famous. Take his fame. You know,
who's the second guy you said?
Sage Northcutt.
Oh,
and he beat him.
Yeah. Which is okay.
And then he went after Diego. I'm like, all right, you're gonna fight a legend now. But it didn't work. Diego beat him.
Yeah, let me look up Diego Sanchez to see if he won his Let me see if he won his last 2 fights. But yeah, Diego is always going to be a guy that's going to beat the guys that don't have the experience because he does not have really.
No, he doesn't.
His stand-up game is rough. He doesn't take people down.
He just plods forward.
Yeah.
Coming at you.
Yeah, he just plods forwards. So he lost to Michael Chiesa.
He won 2 and lost 1. Yeah, he lost to Chiesa.
Yeah, he beat Mickey Gall and he beat Craig White.
But
so
that's why I'm saying Chiesa, because Chiesa, for them to give Chiesa Diego Sanchez, if Chiesa would have lost that fight, he was gone.
If Chiesa would have
lost that fight, he would have been gone.
Without
so I'm
a doubt.
saying he still probably better win this next one, or else they're gonna be like, man, what?
Well, but he's fighting Dos Santos, right?
Yeah, but
So,
still, yeah. I mean, I don't think they kick him out, but they put him right back down. That puts him, right back onto the prelim of the prelim.
Right. All right, man. Well, I think we covered a lot of it. I will say, I think, actually, one thing I'll bring up since we're talking MMA is Mighty Mouse is officially fighting the champion in his weight division in, what is that, one championship?
Yeah.
He wins, right?
Yeah, I mean, how old is he, though? How old is he now?
How old is he? I'm not sure, but, I mean, if he wasn't in his weight class...
I haven't watched him since he left, so, I mean, I don't know how it's been looking.
What's his actual name? I just know him as Mighty Mouse. Demetrius Johnson.
Johnson, yeah.
Let me see if I can pull this up. I don't know. I'm just going to look up Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, it'll work. Mighty Ducks. Let's just watch
that. let's watch that and call it a day. That's hilarious. Okay, let me do Mighty Mouse UFC.
It's up. Oh, yeah. Wikipedia. Oh, it's
actually the Mighty Mouse cartoon. Demetrius Johnson. All right, Wikipedia. So he was born in 1986. So
he's still in the.
He's still in that.
He's
still good.
But at that weight, though, those guys are flying. You know what I mean? I don't think, you can fight till you're 40 at heavyweight. But at that class, the guys pass you up a little earlier.
But his skill level?
Yeah, he's far, and especially at one, he should be far and above those guys.
You would think. I think one actually presents the most problems to the UFC now, even over Bellator.
I don't know. They just haven't got it together, and they keep putting on these Rampage with 56 extra pounds.
Yeah. That was the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my life, him versus Fedor. What are we doing? He showed up in the ring and is like, okay, so you're King Kong Bundy? He
didn't even look like he got punched when he went down. He just cowered and ducked.
Well, and then you listen to his fight press conferences beforehand, whatever you want to call them, and he was saying, sometimes, you just take a fight and you don't care if you win or lose. It's just about the money. And it's like, okay, so that's what you did.
This is clearly about the money.
Yeah, that's clearly what you did.
Sometimes. You mean like this time?
Yeah. But one thing that Justin Blanton said that was very funny, he was, when one of his press conferences, he was saying, so our daughters were born on the exact same day.
Him and
Rampage and Fedor.
Oh, okay.
Their daughters were born the exact same day. He's like, so when I'm getting hyped for this fight, and I'm like, our daughters were born the same day. And I'm thinking, and you start to think with how he's talking that he is like, my daughter is going to be better than your daughter because they were born the same day. So I'm going to beat you, and that's going to make my daughter better. But he goes, but I'm sitting there training, all I can think about is, we were fucking
on the same
at the same time.
Yeah.
He's like, and now
that's where my mind. As soon as he said that, I was gonna say you mean they were fucking at the same time?
Yeah. All right, man. Well, you got anything else?
No, that'd be it. I think.
Yeah, you think you got it? Well, I do think. I think for how this podcast went, I do think me and Kyle will probably try to do a once a month MMA podcast. So look forward to that. I may even try to get a new logo built for that, and you'll see that coming up. But this was the guy that I originally was going to try to do a podcast with, and I'm glad we finally got you on the radio, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I still want to do it, man. We'll get it. We'll do it.
Yeah, we'll get it. And if you decide to do your own podcast, man, the studio is definitely available to you, man. Yeah. So
I'm sure we can do lots of things at this place.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, as long as I'm living here and I don't go broke, we'll do whatever we can, man. So yeah, This is the Gathering of Fools with Kyle. We're out.
Later.